We are still 3 away from quorum.
Okay.
If there are any new board members who've joined us, I just ask that you go to the participant section and the top name on the list should be you. So if you're not named your name, if you're named like iPhone or something like that, we just ask you to change your name to your correct name so that we can rename you properly.
We're at quorum.
Okay, very good. So let's get started. So welcome everybody to the May meeting of Community Board 8. And we are going to start off here with a report from Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. So welcome, Carolyn, very nice to see you.
Well, it's been a busy day. Very, very good to see you, Mr. President of the board. I just want to say hello to everyone and thank you for having me. And I know that on everyone's minds is the abortion rights fight and the draft Supreme Court opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. It's on everyone's mind. That's what we're talking about. We've had numerous, events this week. I spent the weekend with President Squire. We were both marching over the Brooklyn Bridge in support of a woman's right to choose. And I've been fighting for these rights ever since 1973, the decision was made. And actually in 1992, when the Casey decision came out, putting restrictions on a woman's right to choose, I announced for Congress because I wanted more pro-choice legislators to be elected. And I wanted more people who were going to fight for women's rights. We're still marching. This past week, we marched over to the not the Supreme Court, but over to the Senate to vote for the codification of Roe. That failed. And every single place across the country, people have been marching and they're just getting started. if they succeed here, they'll then go after contraception, they'll go after marriage equality. And the only way we can really stop this is by expanding pro-choice majorities in the House and in the Senate. And I'm going to do everything I can to get supported with my position as chair of the oversight. But while securing abortion rights is our priority right now, I want to give you some updates on other things. I had a classified briefing today on the war in Ukraine. We have allocated over $40 billion, and it was an accounting of where the money's going, what it was taking place. It was classified, so I can't talk about everything that they said, but there may be a big announcement in the news tomorrow that is positive for Ukraine. I am proud of the leadership that our country has given in rallying our allies in Asia and Europe to support the democracy and Ukrainian rights. Yesterday, I joined Prime Minister of Greece, Mitsotakis. He came to address Congress in a rare joint session of Congress, discussing our needs. I founded and chair the Hellenic Caucus. I represented a large Hellenic community, particularly in the Queens area of my district. They have been wonderful allies, and we're working together. I do want to mention one of the, and tonight we're passing two bills on the floor on the formulas, getting formulas back on the shelves. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about a local issue in Community Board 8. I know you will vote on the resolution to keep the Knickerbocker Grays at their historic home in Park Avenue in the Armory. They are a cherished New York City institution and tradition. It is the oldest after-school programming in the nation. They have served thousands of school children, instilling the values of leadership, responsibility, and commitment and citizenship. So many of our leaders were members of the Grays, and I support the Knickerbocker Grays and believe they should be permitted to continue to operate at the Park Avenue Armory as they've done for 120 years without threat of eviction. And it really is the purpose of the Armory, really. I have written to President Robertson of the 7th Regiment Armory Conservancy in support of the Grays in their request to resume their events and weekly program, as well as their request to be provided with a suitable alternative space within the Armory for the duration of the renovations. And I have also written the governor of the state, Kathy Hochul, in support of the Grays. And in light of their contributions to our city and dedication to our children, I just want to put my vote and my voice in support of the Knickerbocker Grays, that they be allowed to continue their vital operations uninterrupted. I must say that we've had a number of meetings and demonstrations on the Upper East Side, and the Grays have come and stand with us and add their voice too for our community concerns. So I just wanted to mention that. And Russell, I'd be glad to, I've got to get back to the floor because we have the baby formula vote, and we are voting $28 million to the FDA for baby formula to get it back on the shelves, and we're doing a bill that would reform the WIC benefits. Simply put, they had a contract just with Abbott, and when Abbott had their problems and contamination that closed down their site, then the WIC has not received the baby formula. So that would change that and open it up and let other providers be there. So you'll have to excuse me, I'm going to run to the floor and talk on these two bills and call you back and listen to what's going on in the community and answer any questions later. Thank you, President Squire, for allowing me a chance to address my friends and neighbors and leaders on the Upper East Side. And thank you for your leadership. We appreciate it on the community board very much.
Thank you very much for joining us.
I want to thank you for marching in the parade this weekend. I know you were there the whole time. And I was there with my new grandson. I have a grandson, 5 months old. It was his first demonstration. I think he's going to be a pacifist because he didn't cry. He didn't make any noise. He held his sign. He did a very good job. So I wanted to share the next generation of neighbors speaking out on causes was marching in the parade with me. So thank you, and I yield back, and I'll be back after I have do my work on the floor. Thank you.
Sure, and congratulations, and thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for all of your hard work on behalf of the community. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to work for you.
All right, we will now move to the public session. And I want to make sure everybody knows, if you want to speak in the public session, you do have to sign up online through the website at the same site that you used to get into this Zoom meeting. So if you, there's a box to check that says that you want to speak in the public session when you first are signing in to join here. So if you do want to speak in the public session and didn't check the box that you want to speak, please do go back and rejoin so that we know that that is what you intend to do. You have until 6:45 to sign up to speak in the public session. And I will just give you additional information here, which is that in addition to our committee reports that we typically have during meetings like this, we also are doing a public hearing in this meeting on the transit easement certification that we have on the agenda. And because this is a full board meeting, we aren't doing comments from the public during that portion of the meeting the way that we might have during a committee meeting. So if you are from the public and want to speak on that item, you also have to do that during the public session. So you would have to sign up now and speak now during the public session to do that. And the last reminder that I will give everybody is that members of the public signing up in the public session have only 2 minutes to speak, and we are very strict about that. And I will also turn it over to Will Brightbill, our district manager, who will tell you some of the logistics and also add anything else that you need to know that I left out.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. If this is your first time joining us, you'll notice that everyone is muted. We will, when the chair, Russell, calls on members of the public who've signed up for the public session, we're just going to ask you to help us find you by using the raise hand feature. Go to the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen when you hear your name and push the button that says raise hand. It'll just allow us to be able to find you, especially if you're not named your correct name on the Zoom. If you are calling in from the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute whenever you're called upon. When you are asked to be unmuted, you will see a pop-up screen on your computer that'll ask you to confirm unmuting. If you're having problems and your name is called and you are not able to work Zoom, you can chat us. That is, the chat is only for technical support with Zoom. It is not to make comments or to anyone. They will never see those chats. And if you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to go to the participant section where you'll find the raise hand feature there. And finally, you'll see a timer on your screen that will start beeping at 2 minutes. If you have surpassed your time, we'll have to mute you. And I think that's all the instructions that are needed, and you can start the public session whenever you're ready.
Okay, very good. So I am going to start by calling on Zach Borodkin.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Thank you, Russell. Distinguished members of the community board, distinguished attendees, thank you for attending tonight. I am not a community board member, nor am I a public member, but I support the legislation that would close loopholes that pay people with disabilities less than the minimum wage. The bills are Assembly Bill 3103 and Senate Bill 1826, if I'm correct. Again, I am in favor of supporting these bills because, as we know, people with disabilities are paid much less than their able-bodied counterparts. And at a time when the pandemic recovery is slow and sometimes stagnant, passing this bill would help economic growth in a way for a community that has actually made its way into mainstream culture in the last few years, from transportation to popular culture in the movies. As you know, Coda just won Best Picture. This would add to that immensely and create economic growth, not just for our friends with disabilities, but for our able-bodied counterparts as well. So again, I support the passage of this resolution and hopefully the passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know we have a number of folks here who want to speak about the Knickerbocker Grays, and in particular in favor of the Knickerbocker Grays from the signups here. So I've coordinated with Adrian Rogatnik and David Menegon. So I think rather than have everybody here who's signed up to speak about the Grays speak, we're going to have sort of a smaller number of folks do it to be representative in the interest of time here. But one of the things that I want to make sure that we do is give everybody here an opportunity to show board members, if you have joined, to show your support for one side or another on that particular item. Want to make sure that we convey to the board your presence here and the sort of numbers that we have in terms of people who feel that way. Think of this, if we were here in person and there were a bunch of people here in support of a particular issue, what we would do is we would do essentially a sort of show of hands of how many people are here to support the Grays, and board members would be able to look and see how many hands there are, and then likewise how many people are here in favor of the Armory, and people will be able to raise their hands. So we're going to do the digital equivalent of that now. And so the way to do that is we will start off, if you are here in the public session tonight to show your support for the Knickerbocker Grays and the resolution that was put forward by the committee, if you could just, using the reactions button that you've got on your screen, click on the green checkbox, and then we will leave that up, and so folks will be able to see the number of folks who are here to express that view. And board members, if you open the participants menu on the side, if you click on participants, you can see, from the number of green check boxes, a sense of the numbers here. And yeah, so it's so you can see it's a large number, and folks can see it in the gallery as well. So again, if you're a member of the public here to show support for the Grays, please now at this time raise your hand there. Or not raise your hand, use the green checkbox in the reactions button. So certainly a lot of green checkboxes. It looks like, I think probably over 100. So pretty substantial turnout here. And then if we can just have everybody lower the green check boxes, and if you're able to do that. And then what I would say next is if anybody has joined the meeting on the other side of the issue, and if you are here opposing the resolution that was passed in the committee, please do raise your hand. Or sorry, not raise your hand. Do the same process. Go into the reactions button and use a green checkbox to indicate that you are here supporting. You're showing your support of the Armory, and you're opposed to the resolution that was put forward.
And I'm just going to keep lowering hands. We're not asking you to raise your hand right now.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're talking about the reaction buttons, the green checkbox.
There's only a couple.
Okay. All right, very good. So as I mentioned, I think we're going to be, we're not going to hear from a ton of people here about the Grays, but as I mentioned, I coordinated with Adrian and David ahead of time, so we'll call on some folks to be sort of representative of that view in the interest of time. And so with that, I'm going to start by calling on Adrian Regatnik.
Adrian, go ahead. You can unmute.
2 minutes.
Hi, Russell. Thank you so much, and the community board for having me here to speak to you tonight. I also want to thank Carolyn Maloney for taking time out of her day to lend her support to us, in addition to Senator Kruger and Assemblymember Seawright, Councilmember Menon, Councilmember Keith Powers, and Manhattan Bureau President Mark Levine, who all are supporting the Grays. Now, just to summarize, because Carolyn did it already, we were founded in 1881. We're the oldest after-school program in the nation. We've been serving kids for over 140 years. You'll hear from Colonel Menegon and others later about what the organization does. But we're here today because after COVID restrictions lifted, we notified the Conservancy that we wanted to resume our classes at the Armory, and instead they told us they wanted us to leave. So we're here to say and to ask, don't let this happen. We wanted to resolve this over a meeting, but the Conservancy refused. So that's why we're here in front of a public hearing, in front of our neighbors and community members in the city. It's our belief that the Conservancy has no right to evict us. They don't own the building, and they're one of 3 tenants. The Armory has 195,000 square feet. We take up 800 square feet. And for those community board members who have taken the time to go over and tour the Armory, you've seen the space, you know how much space is there, you know how little space we take up. So there's plenty of space. And I strongly encourage you to go over and get a tour. Russell can coordinate it with the Conservancy to see the space and tour all 5 floors that are occupied right now. As you enter the building, you'll see 2 plaques of the Grays that have sacrificed their lives to World War I and World War II. Our blood's in this building. Our history is tied to this building. Let's honor and preserve that history and connection. Do not destroy it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had 2 folks who signed up who are actually going to yield their time to David Menegon. So we'll go next to David Menegon and we'll give him some extra time here. He'll have up to 6 minutes, but I imagine he won't take all.
Thanks, Russell. Can you hear me? We started?
Yep. Yeah.
I will not be 6 minutes. First, I don't even want to start the clock. I think it might go off in 2 minutes. I want to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity. As you can see, we have quite a few people on the call today. I've been the commandant in the Knickerbocker Grays for 25 years consistently, seeing the same children, some of them 10 years, once or twice a week. My predecessors actually were veterans from the Civil War. So the Knickerbocker Grays is a historic landmark, not only in New York City for 140 years, but the entire country. And we were in the building, like Carolyn said, since 1902. I'm a little surprised at the Conservancy, after 16 years of having a lease and being our neighbors, that they don't want us back in the building. If anybody remembers on this board, I spoke in favor of the Conservancy fixing up the walls and preserving this landmark, which it is a landmark. And I've worked with them for 16 years and they've done a good job, but they made a commitment to preserve this organization like the other organizations in the building, because we're a landmark. We're a community landmark. We've had thousands of children go through this program, and quite a few will speak today. And there's no way that the Grays would impede on the operation of the Conservancy. We're a military traditions. We're not a military organization, but we have military traditions that instill character, leadership, patriotism, community service, and young men and women from the ages of 5 to 17. And that's a very powerful thing. We can't let the Conservancy not allow the Grays to continue, particularly coming out of a pandemic. It's very important for our children to socialize. And why be in that building? It's a landmark. When you walk in, you could see that the cadets have been in this building fighting 2 wars. And it is an armory. A lot of people, do I go longer than that?
Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
Only
Yeah,
go
we'll
for
just
another
reset.
minute. I just want to remind everybody that I spent 30 years regular Army, National Guard, and the Army Reserve. And the Park Avenue Armory is an armory. It still has a military presence there, and it always will. I applaud the Conservancy on doing a good job in fixing it up. They do programming, and they do program for children. I just don't understand why my children no longer appreciate it or have access to that building. So I want to thank everybody here, your consideration and your support. And I know a lot of people on this call. And there's one thing that we all commit to is quality of life and improving the lives of others. And the only way we do that is with personal relationships that are developed over time. I've had cadets that I've seen twice a week for 10 years, and I would rather have 100 2-minute conversations with a child over time than 2 100-minute conversations. That's how we change lives and have a positive impact on this country. Thank you so much. And I hope I have your support to get a lease from the state and continue to operate in this community because it's a community resource and a community landmark. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are going to go next to the Pikes and Tom Pike.
Go ahead and unmute Tom. Look for a button on your screen. Tom Pike, please look for a button on your screen to confirm unmuting.
Okay.
Go ahead. Oh, you
Okay.
muted yourself.
Yeah. So I essentially, I just wanted to talk about some of the history of the Grays too. I think we've covered about some of the details on the particulars. You know, in 1902, the founder of the Grays in 1881 was Augusta Curtis. And there was a fire on the Armory on 34th Street. This is over a century ago. And she wrote a letter to Colonel Danny Appleton in the 7th Regiment Armory asking on that night if she could get into the Armory, and he said yes. And as you've heard, we've been a presence. The kids have been a presence in that Armory since 1902. And I think we've articulated the point that this building is unique. It's a landmark building. And in the 1970s, I was one of many cadets who gathered signatures to prevent the Grays from being, or I'm sorry, preventing the Armory building itself from being either destroyed or turned, as I recall, into a casino. So there's a lot of interest in these children. They understand the architecture, they understand the preservation, and they understand the service to the community. And it's always been that way. And I wanted to enforce that, or I should say, reemphasize that. So my daughters are Grays and I was a Grays, and it's been a part of our family for 50 years. And after 36 years in the Army, I will remember my childhood in the Grays most of all. So this is a unique treasure for Manhattan and for New York that serves children of all temperaments, talents, and convictions. So that's what I just wanted to reinforce. And that unique home, which is centrally located, is close enough that allows children from the West Side, from the Southeast, Lower East Side rather, in Brooklyn and elsewhere to come into this centrally located and unique landmarked special building that has the names of deceased veterans on the walls from World War I and World War II, as well as downstairs of all of our cadets. So it's very special to us. And I want to thank the committee for giving me a chance to chime in on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next let's go to Oscar Ankajima. And I apologize if I have mispronounced your name or anybody's name. Please do correct me and I will try and do better next time.
Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Oscar Ankajima. I'm the Vice President of the Knickerbocker Grays. I have been part of the board for approximately 2 years and a half. And I want to thank all of you for giving the opportunity to speak tonight. My son Eli joined the Knickerbocker Grays when he was 6 years old. And as a single parent concerned about which activity I was going to put my son, I am very blessed to find that I was able to find a family in the Knickerbocker Grays. Not only teach leadership, but also teach community, and has helped him a lot to develop himself and be able to overcome new challenges in his life. It shows the patriotism. It shows the connection of the history with the building. I am so proud that he's part of that. And he's also what I got impressed the most is how children teach children in there. Everybody has their rank. Everybody listens to each other. They learn to lead and drills, and then to implement it during parades. As a board member, I couldn't afford it. So as a member, my son couldn't afford it, and they gave me a scholarship. And then they also extended the opportunity to be part of the board and work with them and be able to work in all the programs to encourage us children to become better. I'm very proud of every child that participates. They take great pride in everything they do, and they work really hard, and they're part of the community. So I hope this community board could help us remain the kids where they belong and they be part the whole time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we will go to
That's crazy.
Eve Hoban. And I apologize again if I mispronounced your name.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Neve Hoban. I'm 24 years old, and I was part of the Grays from the age of 8 to 18, and I was also a former cadet colonel. When I was brought to the Armory at 8 years old, I not only fell in love with the Corps, but also the Armory itself. It was the drill hall, the ornate reception rooms, and the grand staircases that immediately captivated me. I remember feeling how magical the place was and equating it to my own personal Hogwarts. I received my first promotion in the drill hall and felt for the first time immense pride. I had my first experience with public speaking in the veterans room, where I gained so much confidence being able to address a room full of adults. In the second floor company rooms, I learned all about the Armory's history and felt so grateful to be a part of it. Tuesday after Tuesday for 10 years, I called the Armory my home. New York is comprised of countless after-school activities, but this is the only one where I was able to grow up with the same people in the same place every week for a decade. Thank you, and thank you to the board for making the time to hear from us, and thank you to Carolyn Maloney for speaking on behalf of us.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Tessa Brewster.
Tessa, if you're here, please use the raise hand feature under the reactions icon so we can find you. Because I do not see your name in the contact list.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, great.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you so much. So my name is Tessa. My son, Anthony Brewster, is a Gray. He's 9 years old. And both his dad and I, when we discovered the Grays, we were very impressed with the program. When you talk about inclusivity and also having a community where, you know, the kids get to work together and to be connected to something great. You know, everyone's talking about kids not being connected now, especially at this time. But this is an organization where the kids do feel connected to something, you know, much greater. Having their Tuesday meetings in such a, you know, a historical building as the Armory, there is value in that. So not only in what they're learning, but also to be in that space. So I would, we definitely would love them to continue in the Armory. Our son Anthony, he loves going to the Grays and being part of the Grays community. He's had the opportunity to, they do such great community activities. He had the opportunity to meet Professor Gates, and that was, really fantastic. And it's because of his participation in the Grays that he had that opportunity. The kids really learn leadership, and it really gets them to be better leaders and better human beings, which is what we want for our kids and for the future. So I also love the fact that I know somebody mentioned this before, it's centrally located. So that really opens it up to other people who could come in. It's accessible, so people could come in on a Tuesday afternoon after school, so the kids could participate in the program. We live in the area. We've lived in the area, for the past 17 years, and we would love for it to remain this way, where the kids can continue having their sessions at the Armory. Thank you to everyone who supports this, because I believe it's necessary. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Let's go next to Fiona Hogan.
Fiona, if you're here, please use the raise hand feature so that we can find you. So yeah, Fiona of a different last name.
Fiona Foley. Yeah, Fiona
Oh,
Foley.
Foley. Sorry about that.
No, that's no problem. I just want to say that I'm a mother of a previous cadet, and I thought we live in apartment living here in New York City, and I remember when we used to bring her there, we'd go through the big large doors, and we immediately felt it was a home from home, and the organisation welcomed my daughter, and it's historical, just as the establishments of the Grand Central Station that was nearly lost, and Penn Station that was lost, and just like the Vanderbilt Gate and the Conservatory Gardens, it's a living, breathing, iconic museum of New York at the moment, and it teaches wonderful values. The kids are of service to the community, and they go to wonderful establishments, but they're also of service to each other. The older kids look out for the younger kids, and they're an example of character. And it's one of the few organizations that celebrates the development of character. They don't have to get high grades. They don't have to have a certain type of talent. Their talent is their character and the development of their personality. And there's the few organizations that celebrates that. And character is what matters in a progressive society. It also teaches patriotism, which we now see with the Ukrainian war is vitally important. Our Ukraine would have been swallowed up if they hadn't had a sense of patriotism. And that same patriotism in Ukraine is being supported by the world. And the world is seeing the importance of that quality that may seem old-fashioned. And the Greys is giving values to courtesy and respect that they demonstrate when they go to their events and do the color guard. They meet interesting people, they learn from these people, they demonstrate courtesy and respect. And again, these are important values that no other organization puts value on as much as the Knickerbocker Greys. And they take pride in themselves, it raises their self-esteem. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Anna Pike on?
Okay, I think we're, yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Anna. This is my daughter, Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Pike. I'm 9 years old, and I really like the Armory and the Greys because it teaches us leadership, respect, and bravery to all the people we meet. And whenever we go to color guards, parades, and events, we are always prepared because we learn our skills and bravery and things we're going to need in later in life, and we have them all prepared when we go to the Greys. And we should stay in the Armory because we were drilling there for a really long time, and we have a lot of memories of other people and other people who marched before us as a Grey, and it just was really nice to be in their shoes as a cadet in the place they were drilling about 100 years ago.
Thank you very much, Anna. Very, very good job. So we have been joined by our Borough President, Mark Levine. So we will turn it over to him to give a Borough President's report.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I apologize to be coming to you from the back of our vehicle, but I'm hopping around to a bunch of events tonight, and I did want to come in and say hello to all of you. I have to say how inspired I am by the young people who have come out tonight, who are members of the Knickerbocker Greys, and I want you to know that you have my full support for your continued programming in the Armory. And in fact, I sent a letter to the governor supporting you and your fight to remain in your home. I'm even more inspired now that I've got to hear from some of you in person. So count on me as an ally in this fight. I want to start by acknowledging the tragedies that we're all grappling with tonight and that we have been this week, including the horrible murders by young white supremacists, a mass murder of African Americans in Buffalo. This is really an absolute heartbreaking turn of events. I was pleased to join Mayor Adams and a diverse array of clergy members in Harlem on Monday night for a memorial service in honor of the victims. It's so clear that we must do more to combat hatred, racism, white supremacy, and proliferation of guns in New York State. And I know you join me in that effort as well. Closer to home, we've had tragedies in CB8 with not one, but two senior citizens who were killed in crashes in traffic right here in CB8, one last week and one the prior week, two men in their 60s. A heartbreaking loss for the community and a painful reminder that we have to do much, much more to make our streets safer for everybody. And it's why I'm joining with colleagues to fight for New York City to get the power to run its own speed camera program, something that we incredibly don't have. It's entirely controlled by Albany. Specifically, Albany has imposed very bizarre hours of operation on us. Speed cameras in New York City do not operate overnight or on weekends, which is actually when the preponderance of speeding occurs. And so we are pushing very, very hard for Albany to give our city the power to determine the hours that the cameras operate. And specifically, we want to go 24/7 in the name of safety for all of our neighborhoods. This is, we're marking two important heritage, two groups that have their Heritage Month now in May. We have Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I was pleased to participate in the first ever Asian American Pacific Islander parade on Sunday. History, and really thrilled that we could come together that way at a time when we are facing a very ugly wave of anti-Asian hatred here in Manhattan. And also this is Jewish American Heritage Month. And I was pleased to be able to host last night our Borough President's Office Jewish Heritage American Month event. Some of you were there. Thanks for joining us. And type of thing we look forward to doing every single year. I want to acknowledge that we have a turnover in the community board here with some wonderful members who will be completing their service and some wonderful members who are joining us for the first time. And I just want to really thank Elaine Walsh, Lowell Barton, Peter Patch, Harrison Pearson Paynes, and Barry Schneider for their decades of service, collectively 5 decades of service. I believe over half of that, 25 years, is Elaine Walsh alone. And I'm grateful to her and to all of you for your work on the board. And I know that we haven't seen the last of you. I know you'll continue to lead and serve in the community. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And I'm thrilled that we have new board members who are joining us tonight for the first time. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Mohit Argwal, Bill Angelos, Lindsay Cormack, Sahar Hussain, Addison Lev, John McClement, Judy Schneider, and Andrew Chures. A wonderful dynamic group with a tremendous variety of perspectives and life experience. This is something that we've been able to replicate borough-wide. We have over 90 new members of community boards in Manhattan. 70% of them are people of color. A plurality are women. 18% are members of the LGBTQ plus community. A few other impressive numbers for you here. We have 6 members who are high school and college aged, including Addison Lev here on Community Board 8, and a great diversity of young people and other underrepresented groups. I just couldn't be more thrilled with the new leadership that stepped up to serve here on CB8 and around Manhattan. Some of you may be aware that we are in the midst of another COVID wave. And I just want to briefly address the fact that we have entered into a high level of alert here in New York City, where we're seeing officially close to 4,000 cases a day, and certainly much more than that, counting home self-tests. We entered into the high level of alert yesterday because hospitalizations are rising. This is not just mild cases. There are an increasing number of people who are landing in our hospitals. And so the health department has issued a very serious advisory telling people that they should wear masks in public indoor settings, and that particularly people who are high risk because of medical vulnerability should consider avoiding large gatherings. I've called for a variety of actions to make us safer in this pandemic, including a push on booster shots, distributing home self kits to people's homes, etc. But you as leaders in the community, I hope that you are reminding your neighbors that while we are not in the kind of terrible situation we were in the peak of Omicron, that there's real risk that a contagious variant is spreading, and that we all have to be safe. Finally, I'll mention that we are working very, very hard to help this board manage the restrictions of the public meeting law, and that we understand the new regime coming into effect shortly is not ideal. It's going to require this board to operate in a hybrid fashion that has some restrictions which are going to be a challenge, including requirements that a quorum be achieved of in-person members. We are working closely with city law department to secure legal counsel on how you can navigate this. And we're continuing to push for permanent legislation that would give you more flexibility to continue as you see fit in an all hybrid and all online setting, such as you are now, or to have flexibility to operate in hybrid without such difficult restrictions on things like quorum. So we're going to be focusing on this on Borough Board tomorrow. I'm going to pause there. I'm grateful for the time, and I want to close where I began and say that I support the Grays and continue to be inspired by your efforts. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us. And thank you very much for all your efforts on our behalf.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to resume the public session here. So I am going to go next to Stephanie Tomlin, please.
Stephanie, if you're here, please use the raise hand feature that you can find under the reactions. Because I do not see you. Or chat me. Steph.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Tomlin. I'm a former Knickerbocker Gray mom and president of the board at one time. I'm sorry I didn't make the beginning of the meeting, so I haven't heard everybody's positioning, but I just wanted to say that as an African-American who lived on the Upper East Side, I brought my child to the Grays at the age of 5, and he attended the Grays until the age of 18. And what we both took away from the Knickerbocker Grays was the opportunity to share who we were and to learn about other people. And it was a great experience for all that were involved. I continue to be a mentor to the moms. I'm mentored by the moms. It is a strong, strong community of parenting and citizenship and culture. all the positive things that you would want in your community. And it all happened inside of the Armory, which is a beautiful place to have that experience. And I just wanted to say that it was one of the most impactful things of our lives. And I just want to thank everybody at the Grays for helping us have that experience. And I appreciate everybody on the phone that's trying to help kids in the future have the same experience. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go next to Max Phillips. Is Max on?
Max, go ahead. I see you labeled John, but just click that unmute. There you go. You got it.
Good evening. My name is Max Phillips, and I would like to say that I am just very grateful for having the opportunity to be inside the Knickerbocker Grays and have the experiences. And I really hope we could keep the Grays alive so other kids can have the same experience as I did in the future. And I just really like the organization of the Grays because it teaches me discipline and focus. And my grades have been extremely high ever since I joined the Grays. And it just really helps me overall become a good person.
Thank you very much. Very good job. We will next go to Andre Altair, please.
Hi, my name is Andre Altair. I was cadet colonel in the Grays from 2016, 2017. I also grew up 3 blocks away from the Armory, so for me, it really was a neighborhood institution. And considering alternate locations, I wouldn't have joined otherwise. And I think that would have been a real loss for me. I currently study history and international relations. And I wouldn't have ended up there if it hadn't been for the people and the topics I was exposed to in the Grays. And so the confidence it gave me in terms of expressing my interest in those areas. And, just thinking about history, not only are we sort of an integral part of the community, which I know others have spoken on, but, we're in the Armory. And if you think about, what is preservation of the Armory mean? It's not only about, preserving, structures and the architecture. It's also about, maintaining a connection with the Armory's history. The Grays have been there for, 120 years. And, to see them leave would not only be, a grave detriment to the kids and the community in which they reside, but also, to the Armory itself and the interest of the Conservancy in preserving its long and rich history. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we will go to Elaine Walsh.
Go ahead and unmute, Elaine. Oh, sorry. Hit the mute button. Go ahead. Just unmute again. Sorry about that. We haven't started the timer. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to start with saying, and you've heard that I have not been reappointed to the board after 25 years of service to the community. I want to say it was a pleasure to work with the community where I was raised, and want to thank the board members who worked with me tirelessly and with the public to ensure a livable community. Reports such as the POP study, R8B, community facility, MIH, etc., provided the opportunity for us to all work together. So I really want to thank you, and I will say I will not be going away. The issue that I worked on was the Armory. And at that point, it was to save the women's shelter because the Conservancy wanted them not to be there. We were successful in that. They have a lease. What is sad is that it was understood that the Grays were the Armory and that they would continue with the 7th Regiment, and with the National Guard. I would hope that Rebecca Robinson would turn to the Grays and work with them. And I hope that the governor will provide a lease to the Grays to provide for them in their home for the next zillions of centuries. I personally know the Armory. My uncle was the managing major general there who ran the Armory, and cousins and brothers all went there. So I want to say good luck, and this fight will be successful with the Grays. Thank you.
Very much. Next, let's go to Daniel Ekman, please.
Hi, my name is Dan Ekman. I'm the president of the 7 District Foundation. We're a local 501c3 that supports children's charities, and several of the charities that we do support are after-school programs. So I have read everything there is to read about the subject, and it's impossible to overstate the value that these programs provide to children. You've heard from lots of people who are involved with the Grays, lots of people who've participated personally in the Grays, and I don't think I need to repeat what they've been saying about the value of the organization. Something, though, that I think that might be missed here. The argument in favor of moving the Grays is going to be that the Grays will continue. Wherever you put them, they're going to continue to do the good work that they do. I think it's important to note that one of the really valuable things that these after-school programs provide to children is not only a sense of belonging, but a sense of pride. And you can't say to children, they should retain a sense of pride, but maybe not on Park Avenue. We're talking about a historical building, and it's very centrally located, but it's also very premium property. And that is a major important thing when you're talking about the way that these children perceive what it is that they're getting involved with. This is a ritzy neighborhood, and that provides perceptive value to the actual endeavor itself. And you can't say, well, move, 60 blocks north, it'll be the same thing. Maybe we'll find you a space in Brooklyn. Perception matters. And in this case, I don't see any way to spin this that isn't horribly disingenuous. You can't say we're acting in the interest of the public good by removing children from an after-school program with this undeniable a track record. So I'm strongly in favor of leaving the Grays where they are, let them continue doing the important work that they do in the place where they do it.
Thank you. So we've heard a number of speakers now talking about the Grays, and I would just ask that if you are in the public session to speak on behalf of the Grays, I'm not going to be calling on any more folks. I think that view has certainly been expressed loud and clear here tonight. And if I do call on you and that is what you intend to speak about, it's because I couldn't tell from the sign up that is what you're going to speak about. So if that is the subject matter, I'll ask you not to go. I don't think there's anybody left that I'm going to be calling on that's going to fall into that category, but I'm just giving everybody fair warning here. So next, let's go to Judith Katz Schwartz, please.
Judith, if you're here, please use the raise hand button so we can find you, because I do not see your name in the participants list.
And the next person on the list will be Joel Rosenberg.
Same is true for you, Joel. If you were here, please use the raise hand button or chat myself or one of the staff members so that we can rename you. And it is a nice time to remind everybody, if you signed up for the public session, look at the name on your device. If it does not match the name you signed up on, please go ahead and rename yourself.
Next, we will go to Maggie Barber.
Same is true for Maggie Barber. I do not see you here. Oh, here we go. Margaret? Margaret, go ahead and hit unmute if you're Maggie.
She's not Maggie, she's Margaret, but she's
Oh,
part of the
Margaret.
Grays. Can she speak, or do you want to have a non-child speak?
So with apologies, we've heard from a number of folks from the Grays, and I coordinated with Adrian ahead of time about limiting the number of folks who are going to be speaking in the public session because we have a lengthy agenda to get to. So I think we're done with speakers on the subject of the Grays. As I mentioned before, folks who are able to raise your hand, to show. I know there are a lot of people here supporting the Grays, and so we did a sort of virtual show of hands to indicate that, but we don't have time, unfortunately, to continue to have speakers on that. So I apologize. So next we are still. I don't think that was Maggie Barber. So if Maggie Barber's here, go ahead. Otherwise, next we'll go to John McNally.
John McNally is actually the presenter for.
Oh, my mistake. Okay.
Next,
let's go to Andrew. Yep, got it. Let's go to Andrew Fine.
All right, I do see Andrew Fine. So Andrew, go ahead.
Hi, thanks everybody. And I am pro Knickerbocker. I think it's it's not meant to be an antique show. It's meant to be for the community. But I wanted to thank Elaine Walsh for her service of 25 years on the community board. She was, in my opinion, inexplicably not reappointed to the community board by our esteemed and respected Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine, on Friday, the 13th of all times. I thank her for her 25 years of service. There were 20 board members who were not reappointed in Manhattan, and I just think that it's silly that she was one of those 20. I thank her for representing the Upper East Side as a diverse board member, a woman who's retired, a professor, a lesbian, and a caregiver of somebody that's disabled, and a driver of a car. Goodness forgive. She was a unique and valuable perspective that is irreplaceable. She fought battles that younger members could never understand. Further, in this case, the East 86th Street Association is no longer represented on Community Board 8. I feel that the community board has lost a bit of its community and got a lot more bored. In any case, I want to thank Elaine again. She's been fantastic. She's been a leader. She's been tireless, and she has been a wonderful mentor to people like me to get involved and make a difference in the community. Thank you, Elaine. And I only wish this could have been reversed, or perhaps it could be. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Andrew Ravishir, please.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak, and I want to echo other people's sentiments, thanking the people who have served on the board, and then also welcoming in new members, and I'm really excited to hear their voice and opinions on the important issues. I'm here to talk yet again about the need for an immediate, non-negotiable, absolute 210-foot height cap on all new developments for environmental purposes, and to dispel the myth that height caps will destroy our capacity for affordable housing. Many of you know me by now. I'm a peer-reviewed published cellular researcher, specifically who investigates climate's pollution impact on organisms at the cellular level. You've heard me say for several years now that we suffer an exponential rise in climate change pollution above the 10th floor, 100 feet, and then again above the 21st floor, 210 feet. Even when tall developments are supposedly green and LEED certified, we find out that after the fact, those buildings pollute terribly. The Bank of America Tower in Midtown is a prime example of such a circumstance. The UN, Bloomberg, and Fast Company have recently reported data regarding building height and climate change pollution. More and more, however, we hear excuses that we must build endlessly tall in order to increase our affordable housing stock. The thinking goes that the only way to welcome more working class New Yorkers into our city is to construct huge towers. But time and time again, in real time, we see this promise fail. Overdevelopment, not sensible development, has numerous harmful effects. We're seeing the loss of over 14,000 units of affordable housing in our area, the disappearance of mom and pop shops that are the economic lifeblood of our community and city, and an increase in rodents. Make no mistake, we need developers and new construction. We need improved infrastructure. Strong, non-negotiable legislation will support both developers by providing a solid foundation and also our community. Sensible growth lets us all win, not just the select few. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Valerie Mason.
Hi, everybody. Just two quick thank yous. I just want to thank the entire community board for the outpouring of support and compassion you've shown me in the last couple of weeks at the loss of my mother. It was really an unbelievable outpouring. Cards, letters, your attendance at the wake. I just was really it was heartfelt, a heartfelt thank you to all of you. I think it shows the camaraderie of the community board and the camaraderie of the Upper East Side. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I also want to just thank, in particular, members of the board who are going off the board, Barry Schneider and Elaine Walsh, echoing some of what Andrew Fine said. These two members can teach you a lot about how to work on a community board. And I hope they will remain in coming to meetings and sharing their expertise. I'll say this in the best possible way. I think that term limits on community board members are not well placed. But thank you all for coming tonight. It's great to see the number of people from our community here having their voices heard. And it's an honor and a privilege to listen to all of you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. All right, that is everybody who signed up to speak in the public session. So we will move now to the public hearing on the transit easement certification for 300 East 83rd Street. Before we proceed here, I'm going to move up part of my chair report, and obviously Borough President Mark Levine mentioned the new members that we have, but because the new members are going to be able to speak on this item that we're discussing, I just want to also list them and welcome them. So welcome to the new members of CB8, Mohit Agrawal, Bill Angelos, Lindsay Cormick, Sahar Hussain, Addison Lave, John McClement, Anju Suresh, and Judy Schneider, who is placing, I suppose, Barry Schneider, who is an outgoing board member and has been on the board for decades and a former chair of the board. And also I want to acknowledge the other outgoing board members, Elaine Walsh, who was on the board for several decades, and Lowell Barton, Peter Patch, Harrison Pearson Paynes. So all of these are folks who served the board for years, and we thank them for their service on the board. So with that, we are going to move to the presentation from the applicant. And so we will turn it over to John McNally.
John, go ahead and unmute again. There you
Thanks. Will, do you have the presentation up, or do you need me to try and share my screen?
We would appreciate if you share your screen so you don't, nobody has to wait on me.
Sure. Let me, in which tab would I find that? I apologize for my Zoom illiteracy.
It's okay. I'll put it up. You go ahead and get started. And It'll be on my screen.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. My name is John McNally. I'm a planner with Philip Abib and Associates. I'm joined by Luigi Russo, the project architect at SLCE Architects. On behalf of the applicant, E83 Properties LLC, requesting a zoning certification from the City Planning Commission, specifically a transit easement certification pursuant to the Special Transit Land Use District. Next slide. So properties within the special district are required to file an application with the Department of City Planning before applying for building permits from DOB. That application is then referred to the MTA and the community board. The MTA then determines whether they believe an easement is appropriate or warranted at a specific site. And then if no easement is required by the MTA, the City Planning Commission certifies to DOB that no easement is required. Next slide, please. The development site is a 5,900 square foot zoning lot located at the southeastern corner of the intersection of 2nd Avenue and East 83rd Street. It's located in the Special Transit Land Use District and is zoned C19. As you can see in the land use map presented before you, the surrounding area is characterized predominantly by residential uses on the side streets and mixed use residential commercial uses on the avenues. Next slide, please. The project site shown there in the upper left-hand corner has approximately 75 feet of frontage along East 83rd Street and approximately 78 feet of frontage along 2nd Avenue. Next slide. The applicant intends to construct a residential building with ground floor retail. That building would be constructed pursuant to the existing C19 zoning and would not require any additional discretionary actions or waivers. Next slide, please. As shown in the photographs, the project site is currently vacant and surrounded in construction fencing and scaffolding. Next slide. These photos depict the sidewalk conditions adjacent to the project site. Next slide, please. The project site's located approximately 150 feet south of the southern entrance of the East 86th Street station, which is a photo located in the bottom right-hand corner and is somewhat obstructed by the scaffolding there. Next slide, please. Again, just a couple additional photos of the entrance there underneath the scaffolding in the upper left-hand corner. Next slide. Last week, on Wednesday, the MTA submitted a letter stating that they did not believe that an easement was warranted at the project site, indicating that they have no plans to add any elevators, staircases, or other entrances at our site. Next slide. This drawing is intended to depict the relationship between the site and the existing platform at the East 86th Street station. The applicant-owned site is shaded here in purple. As you can see, the site is located too far south to connect the site to the existing platform. If an easement were granted, it would require an extension of the existing platform and a reconfiguration of the mechanical areas, something that the MTA has indicated that they don't think is feasible. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go to questions and comments from the board. I am just going to, particularly because we have some new folks, just clarify. So the question here is, what the applicant is seeking is a certification that no transit easement is required. So that's the question that's under discussion here. And one other thing I'll ask is if folks are making a privilege motion like a point of information or something along those lines, please don't just raise your hand, but also chat will that's what you're doing, because that way we'll make sure that we'll be able to get you and we won't just think that you're making a comment in the event that a question gets called. So with that, we are going to go first to Valerie Mason.
Valerie, go ahead and unmute. And also, if you're going to step away from the computer, don't forget to go to the reactions icon and put up the coffee cup that says you're away.
Hi, Thanks very much. I just want to make a point that I've made the same point I made with respect to the easement question that we had, transit easement question that we handled in the Transportation Committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. I appreciate that the building has received this sort of no action letter on the part of the MTA. But I want to point out again that I think the MTA is once again making a huge mistake by not retaining an easement on this building. We saw in the construction of the 2nd Avenue subway how construction was held up, and the MTA had to do very many workarounds because they hadn't planned ahead to get easements where they thought they might not need them. There's nothing wrong with taking an easement and then coming back later and using it. It's worse not to have it, because once they give it up, they will not be able to get an easement unless this building comes down. I think, once again, this shows the short-sightedness of the MTA. There may be developments and quicker construction, et cetera, that might be able to give more access in terms of access for the disabled, additional stairways, et cetera. And I think the MTA is once again showing that it is inept at its job. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Marco Tamayo.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Russell. In order to remove the easement on this development and due to the lack of clarity of these materials presented, I have a series of questions with an introduction. My first question is, in the last report about the quality of air, Manhattan and the Bronx leads in poor quality of air than the rest of the boroughs, even though during the beginning of the pandemic period, there was a significant traffic reduction. Then the major pollutants are the buildings, which is consistent with what DOB has been saying. That is true because most of the buildings are not sustainable design with a poor selection of materials, and they are constructed under the concept, quote, let the buildings breathe, end of quote. This means most of the buildings warm up and cool the inside of them as well as the environment. It sounds ridiculous, but it is true. Thus, the higher the increase of load, the more increase of carbon monoxide in the environment, the poorer the quality of air, and the more sickness we have. So the issues are loads, loads, and loads. The height of the building has nothing to do with it. Consequently, I demand from this developer to build a sustainable development to start the reduction of loads. A passive building or net zero building is the best choice in reducing loads, even though these buildings are a little bit more expensive to build, but in the long term are less expensive because the utility bills are lower than the regular buildings. Therefore, these buildings are more profitable than the traditional buildings. By the way, clarifying, these buildings, such as the Bank of America, are not sustainable buildings. They are commercial certification only and are not recognized as a sustainable buildings by DOB. Furthermore, by the year 2050, all buildings have to reduce 80% of carbon emissions as per building code, so that the goal is to build passive building as minimum. By the way, presently I design and build sustainable buildings in my development. On the chart behind me from CONED Energy Report, my house is performing between 7 to 80% more efficient than the regular houses, reaching the goal of 2050 presently. So if I can do, everybody can. The question is, are you willing to reduce the carbon emissions in your proposal to start improving our quality of life? This is the question, my first question.
Sure, I can turn that over to Luigi Russo at SLCE Architects to hopefully answer your question. Luigi, are you here? I think he's signed in under L Russo, Will, if that's helpful. I don't know if he's signed in on his full name.
That's very helpful.
I'm just
Luigi, you can go ahead and unmute. Luigi, just hit the unmute button on your screen. There you go. Now speak. Luigi, we cannot hear you if you were trying to speak. Maybe you have some headphones plugged in. You can always check your audio settings. Try to unmute now. Luigi?
Do we know if he's on?
I do. I mean, I have a El Russo that matches, and I've changed the person's name to Luigi.
I mean, do we know if he's at his computer?
He tried to unmute. He was unmuted, and then if he was speaking, we could not hear him. He says he's having issues with his mic.
Okay, so
Luigi, really quickly, sorry, John. If you leave the meeting, come right back and try to sign in and speak. Maybe you'll fix the problem. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say I'm not an architect by training, and I'm not involved in the building process, but I can say that the building will comply with all relevant building codes. I was hoping the architect could chime in.
And we'll get he'll be able to further supplement once he rejoins. But in the meantime, let's go to Craig later.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to make a resolution, and if seconded, speak to it, please. I'd like to make a resolution stating that Community Board 8 concurs with the MTA's finding and certification that no easement is required for 300 East 83rd Street.
Okay, Billy Freeland seconds.
Great, thank you. Let's just stick to the matter at hand, which is the easement. And this is a mirror image of what we discussed a few months back when we had a similar presentation for 250 East 83rd Street. And I'm basically going to repeat the comments I made there, which is we all recognize 5 years after the Second Avenue subway opened, the deficiencies at 86th Street, especially with the decision to only put in one elevator to go from street level down to mezzanine level. And if that elevator is down, it's a problem. And we've seen way too many times already the escalators fail as well. And given that it's new construction, it's completely inexcusable that that's the case. However, as the diagram clearly depicts, 300 East 83rd Street is nowhere near the platform or any publicly accessible location within the mezzanine level of the 86th Street station. And there is absolutely no purpose of having an easement over here. And I think we're fighting the wrong battle if we're going to try to make a case to try to have one here when we have other potential future opportunities where an easement would absolutely be beneficial, and we should be doing everything in our power to get better accessibility or additional amenities, elevators and escalators to enhance and improve accessibility and to build in the redundancy that is really necessary for this to be a station that works well over the long term. So with that, I just also want to welcome all new members and thank all the outgoing members of this board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Anthony Cohn.
And Luigi, you can unmute at any time and see if we can hear you. Anthony, go ahead.
Thank you. I have, I guess, three things that I want to say here. One is that the 86th Street stop on the Q train is so underserved in terms of accessibility as to almost be inaccessible. And I think that it is, and I think that it's important as Valerie suggested, to in fact maintain some future control over this lot in terms of being able to provide additional accessibility to this station. That's the first thing. The second thing is that Craig just mentioned the notion of pushing hard for other opportunities, which is a good idea, other opportunities somewhere along the existing platform, or at least above the existing platform rather, and mezzanine. And I think that one of the problems with that approach is that it presupposes the destruction of more of our neighborhood fabric in order to build new buildings that may or may not apply for a waiver of their easements. And third, I want to echo others who thanked outgoing board members, and in fact to especially thank Elaine, who has been really my mentor on the Zoning and Development Committee, and leaves an unfillable void in our community board. Thank you.
Thanks. So it looked like briefly like Luigi Russo had unmuted himself, but is muted again. So I think Will's going to keep trying. But we're now going to go to Adam Wald.
I think that an easement volume is not necessary here, but I would just like to point out that the applicant has been a bad neighbor and has demolished buildings without a proper construction license agreement. And in addition, the application only mentions lot 49, but the zoning lot recorded on ACRIS includes lot 148. I'm confused why the application, the area map, the project use photographs, everything only includes lot 49 and does not include 148, which is part of the zoning lot. Can someone speak to that, please?
We're going to unmute
John, go ahead. You're muted. There you go.
Sure. To my knowledge, the project lot was previously lots 49, 50, and 51, and have since been consolidated into lot 49.
That's right. And lot 148 is also part of the zoning lot, and SLCE's filing and the on DOB now includes lot 148. Again, it doesn't really matter, but the application should be accurate and correct. So I don't understand why it's so incorrect, and why the neighbor, again, has been a bad neighbor and is performing demolition work without a legal construction license agreement with the neighbor.
I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I can speak to the applicant and get further information for you.
Okay, well, it looks like Luigi Russo has unmuted. So if you want to address the previous question that Marco had raised.
Luigi, we still cannot hear you. There's a options menu next to the mute button, unmute button. Click on that, go to audio settings, and make sure you have a microphone set up.
So Luigi, you may also be able to dial into the audio. So why don't we have Will, if you can just send him that information.
Yeah, Luigi, just chat me the last 3 numbers of the phone you just dialed in with. He's chatting me right now, and I'll unmute that phone. He's on the phone, so we should be able to connect with him. All right, go ahead and hit the unmute button on your phone. That is *9, *6.
*6.
Can you guys?
Thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties that I'm having tonight. I'd like to answer the last question first, actually, regarding the lot size. The reason why I think there's a discussion is that the lot 148 is a zoning air right lot, which is an existing building to remain. So in reality, that is part of the zoning lot, and we were able to basically take that 7,200 square feet and utilize that into our building. So it is the overall site is basically 75 plus the 25, it's 100 feet along 83rd Street and 78.8 along 2nd Avenue. So lot 148 is part of the zoning lot, but the building will be basically built on lot 49. Is that clear?
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I don't think that's inconsistent with what was being said by what Adam had said. But what about Marco's question?
Yeah, I did not understand Marco's question because it was muffled on. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I gladly can respond to if you could.
Yeah, it was about the sustain. Well, we can unmute Marco so he can repeat his question. But it was about sustainability.
Very, very straightforward question. Sir, yeah. I'm a professional architect, by the way, and I know how you file it. You file it and you just modify the building code and you play with the camp check and residential check. You manipulate numbers. The bottom line is, are you willing to build passive housing and or a net zero building, or because it is more expensive for the developer, but in the long term it's cheaper and the developer will make more money. And please, Russell, I have another question similar that thank you.
That is certainly a question that I cannot answer because obviously I'm not the owner, but we meet every single New York City requirement as far as energy. And I honestly, I don't understand how you could say that we manipulate areas. I mean, this is just, we meet the code, and the code basically restricts us from manipulating such areas. So we meet New York City code and the energy code to the fullest. As far as emissions, I think that the client has the right to basically spend or not spend dollars based on his performer. I certainly cannot talk for them.
Russell, I think he answered the question, and I'm happy with that answer, that he didn't answer the question, my question. So my second part of the questions are, I have to say that the 7th Street easement and this one is taking huge advantage of multi-millions infrastructure, the subway. Also, with the information provided, I am unable to comprehend the scope of this proposal. Raises several questions. It sounds like you are muddying the waters. However, I can say this development combined 3 lots, 49, 50, 51, and transfer the air right, like you said, 148. So basically, the presentation should be as a one zoning lot, not 2 lots. And right now is one zoning lot, and you have to include the 148. That is the way that should be done. And now, I can say this development combined these 3 lots and the air rights of the lot 148 with a total floor area of 78,670 square feet. However, this development is claiming 109,000 square feet. I can assume the difference of 30,000 approximately is coming from housing vouchers. Are you using all vouchers? I would like to know where they are located and what type of affordability do these vouchers have? Also, they are planning to build 70 dwelling units. Within the dwelling units are the 20 apartments on the lot 148 included for the transfer of the air rights in that number. And the other question that I have, according with the city planning, the lot 148 have some parts of its encroachment on A and B regulation. Are you treating the entire lot as a C19 with equivalence or a 10? And how many luxury apartments are you building? What is the density of the development? Please answer this question. Thank you.
I'm glad we will answer these questions. Everything is public notice. We've basically filed with the Department of Buildings. We have a Z1, which is, again, public knowledge. Everybody's more than welcome to look at it. The 70 units are within the actual new building constructed. Of the 70 units, basically, we have 42, which are basically market rate, and there's 28 low-income housing units. The additional units that remain in the building, which is lot 148, will be remaining as they are. Nothing is being touched. Nothing has been basically touched in that building.
So are you?
Wait, I'm sorry, Marco.
Are you using the old vouchers? And where are the transfer of the from where development are coming the transfer of the air rights?
Okay, and that's last question then.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Again, we're building a building as of right. There's nothing here which is basically out of the normal. We're using the overall air parcel, which is the total area of the site is basically 7,867, and we're multiplying that by 12, which is basically allowed by zoning, which gives us basically a total ZFA of 94,404, which our zoning sheets comply with. So I don't understand the question.
Let's go next
We are
to
building a
Alita.
building as of right.
All right, we'll go now to Alita Camp.
Thanks, Russell. I just want to say it's not a question, a comment based on Adam, who doesn't loosely call developers and business owners bad neighbors, and based on Valerie's comments and Anthony's comments that I intend to vote no on this one. I think it's important that developers and owners, given the stress of the community, be good neighbors in order to ask for something from us. Thank you.
Let's go next to Billy Freeland.
Call the question.
Is there a second? And you can second an item, yeah, with a thumbs up. And for new members, just so you're aware, if you want to second something, you can just use a thumbs up reaction button. You don't have to raise your hand to do that. So that's sort of a shortcut that we use. So there's been a second. The question, anyone opposed to calling the question? No hands there. So, all right, let's, the question has been called. And I think we can turn this over to the secretaries.
Rebecca,
Please
you got
raise
this?
your hand if you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause. Adam,
Not voting for cause.
can you state your cause?
Our firm represents the abutting owner.
Thanks. Sharon? Sherry?
No.
Marco?
No.
Ed?
No.
Alita?
No.
Peggy?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Valerie?
No.
Anthony?
No.
Gail?
No.
Bill?
No.
Welcome to the. Elizabeth?
No.
Mrs. Brown?
No.
Abraham?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Anyone else? While I tally those votes, just to remind all of the board members, and especially our new ones, if you're leaving, if you have to leave the meeting for any reason, please make sure to chat well out, Lynn.
No.
So if you have to leave the meeting for any, Sahar?
No.
Welcome to the board. John?
No.
So I'll tally these up, that if you have to leave the meeting for any reason, make sure to chat Will. And if you have to step away for a moment, please use the coffee cup. That way we don't accidentally count your votes as a yes.
Okay, I think probably better just to wait to get the results on this.
The motion carried by a vote of 25 yes, 15 no, and 1 not voting for cause.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to move now to the next item on the agenda, which is adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Rami has his hand up.
Rami, did you?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Is there a second? Okay, anyone opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Is there a motion to approve the prior minutes? Interpret Rami and yeah, so there are, and there's some seconds. Very good. Anyone opposed to that? No. Okay, very good. So we've already had the Manhattan Borough President's report. So let's go now to the elected official reports. And as usual, each of you will have 2 minutes, and please raise your hands to identify yourselves. And we are going to start with Audrey Tannen from Senator Liz Kruger.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome, new members. And I know that Senator Kruger and everyone in our office looks forward to partnering with the new members and continuing to work with the continuing members. A few things. One, there's no shades of gray here. Liz has been and continues to be all in with the grays on this issue. Her support was there at the beginning, and it continues to be there until this gets resolved. Number 2, she's in Albany with a lot of her colleagues. The next few weeks the session will continue through the next few weeks. We expect there'll be a lot of bills passed in these remaining weeks, and she'll come in June and give you a proper update of, we hope will be many accomplishments during the session. The other thing locally, please know that next week we're going to be having a town hall, a virtual town hall on the surge in electricity costs, which we know will continue into the summer. So be prepared for those high costs when everyone turns on their air conditioning. We're going to be having as guests with Senator Kruger, members from the Public Utility Law Program, which is a nonprofit that really works for consumer advocacy for utility costs. So we hope you'll join us next week for that virtual town hall. I know you've got a long agenda still ahead. So I'll wrap it up and just wish you a good, productive meeting. I'll put the information about the town hall in the chat. Have a good meeting, all.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Courtney Pharisee, Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright's office.
Hi, good evening. On behalf of Assemblymember Seawright, we welcome the new members to the board. Congratulations to you and those who have been reappointed. To those who are departing, a heartfelt thank you for your years of dedicated service and commitment to working through issues with a compassionate ear and a careful eye, including Elaine Walsh, Peter Patch, Barry Schneider, Harrison Pearson Paines, and Lowell Barton. Thank you all for your outstanding work and service to our community. We have great news to report. Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright's legislation to require a majority of the REOC board to be residents of Roosevelt Island has passed both houses. Earlier this session, her legislation requiring the REOC CEO to be a resident of Roosevelt Island also passed both houses. With the support of longtime island activists, Assemblymember Seawright has made progress for a more representative self-governance on Roosevelt Island. This week, we administered over 30 second boosters at our community office clinic in partnership with the local drug mart to keep our neighbors safe and healthy. As COVID is on the rise, Rebecca would tell you to stay positive and test negative. And my final comment is in support of the Knickerbocker Grays. The Corps of Cadets is inclusive and representative of our city's BIPOC communities, those living with disabilities and children from every socioeconomic background. They're being threatened with eviction, and we urge the board to vote yes on the resolution, a yes for the continuation of the Gray's 120-year legacy at the Armory. I'm going to put our information in the chat, and thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Patrick Hill from Councilmember Keith Power's office.
Hi, everyone. I know I am a new face. My name is Patrick Hill. I'm covering the meeting.
Your volume's a little low. Is there a way for you to turn it up?
Sure. Give me one moment.
Just speak a little closer to your microphone.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Much better.
Okay. I think it was just a microphone input issue. My apologies. Anyway, my name is Patrick Hill. I know I'm a new face, but I'm covering the meeting for this month. I do have a few updates from our office. Last month, Councilmember Powers joined Mayor Adams to announce a new exciting Clean Streets initiative. The project Clean Curbs aims to bring waste containers to corners and commercial districts across the city. The goal is to get garbage bags off the streets, improve aesthetics, reduce rodents, and keep sidewalks from being overwhelmed by trash. The pilot has begun in Times Square and will be rolled out in business improvement districts for residential and commercial waste citywide. As we rebuild, the city must invest in clean, healthy streets and that are not overrun by garbage. Furthermore, the council member proudly introduced legislation moving New York City away from burning fossil fuels by requiring the city to only purchase zero-emission vehicles starting in 2025 and transition its entire vehicle fleet by 2035. While previous administrations have pledged to do this, the process has moved very slowly. Currently, out of over 5,900 public New York City buses, only 15 run on electricity. This legislation, however, significantly speeds up that timeline and creates the requirement to make the transition to electric vehicles a reality. Also, last week, the council member joined Hunter College and Community Board 8 representatives in co-naming 68th Street and Lexington Avenue as Audre Lorde Way. A trailblazing figure in our city and nation's history, Lorde studied, taught, and built her extraordinary career at Hunter College. It was a true honor to dedicate the street to such an icon who has inspired so many generations of students, faculty, and administration. As we grapple with the reality of a post-Roe v. Wade world, there's no better time to commemorate the legacy of such a strong advocate for justice, equity, and civil rights. Additionally, our office has been working with the Treadwell Farms Historic District Association, Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts, Community Board 8, and other local stakeholders for several years to address the ongoing issues at the Treadwell Farms property at 210 East 62nd Street. Most recently, we submitted testimony to the Landmarks Preservation Commission with Congresswoman Maloney, State Senator Kruger, State Assemblywoman Seawright, Manhattan Borough President Levine, and Councilmember Julie Menon to revoke the property owner's certificate of appropriateness. At the last moment, the owner rescinded his application and the hearing was canceled. Therefore, he is required to remove all construction done in non-compliance with the original approvals. We will continue to monitor the property and engage the enforcement agencies if needed regarding any further construction complaints. All residents deserve clean, safe, and comfortable streets, and we are committed to ensuring that this reality is across our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will go to Alex Wolin from Assemblymember Dan Fort's office.
Hi, everyone. Alex here, Assemblymember Court's Deputy Chief of Staff. Hello to all new members. I know I speak for the Assembly member when I say we look forward to working with you in the next couple months. Because, as you may know, the Assembly member is wrapping up his final legislative session. Last week, we held a press conference in Albany with our coalition partners like Vocal New York and the Innocence Project to call for the passage of the Assembly members Challenging Wrongful Convictions Act. Over the weekend, we got some pretty exciting news that the CWCA was put on a committee agenda, and on Tuesday it passed the committee. We have almost 50 co-sponsors in the Assembly, so we're really trying to keep the momentum around the bill going and doing everything we can to see it come to the floor for a vote. Another fun update is that we received word from the Reform Government Surveillance Group, which is a coalition of companies including Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, and a bunch of others, because they recently endorsed the Assembly members' reverse location search warrant bill, which would ban the use of these unconstitutional warrants in New York courtrooms. Yeah, that's all on my end. If you are interested in learning about either of these bills, please reach out, and I'm happy to drop my contact info in the chat for any follow-ups. Thank you.
Next, let's go to Cameron Kaufman from Councilmember Julie Menon's office.
Thank you. My name is Cameron Kaufman. I'm the Director of Constituent Services for Councilmember Julie Menon, and we want to congratulate the new members of Community Board 8 and also congratulate the outgoing members for their tremendous service to this community and really dedicating their time to so many critical issues to improve our quality of life. I want to start by flagging a couple big events that our office is hosting this weekend. Both on Saturday, we're doing a free bike helmet fitting and giveaway in John Jay Park from 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And on Saturday night with the Parks Department, we are co-hosting a movie Under the Stars in St. Catherine's Park. That's going to be at 8:30 p.m. I'll put that information in the chat. Our office also stood with the Knickerbocker Grays. We were actually on the Youth and Education Committee meeting a couple weeks ago, and Councilmember Menon is fully committed as well to working with them to ensure that they can keep their space. One of the big things that we've been working on the past month was bringing free broadband to NYCHA residents, specifically in Holmes Isaacs Towers. And we were able to get dozens of folks signed up. A few weeks ago, we had other council members, the mayor's chief technology officer, Verizon, Spectrum, a bunch of different stakeholders, and we were thrilled with the initial success. And this is going to be something that's going to be hopefully scaled out across the entire city. Bridging the digital divide is a top priority for the council member. The final thing I want to highlight is since we've last been here, we announced our winners for participatory budgeting. We were really excited about the success of our PB initiative. Almost 2,000 votes were cast throughout the district. Originally, we were going to allocate $1 million to 3 projects, but we ended up, because of such a surge in participation, choosing 6 projects and an extra $300,000. You can find out more, but the top vote getters were the schoolyard resurfacing at MS 114, technology upgrades at the libraries, and pathway repavings at Carl Schurz Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Terrell Brock from Senator Jose Serrano's office.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Terrell Brock, and I'm a community liaison from State Senator Jose Serrano's office. Over the last several weeks, the senator has sponsored multiple bills that have passed the New York State Senate. Some pieces of legislation that passed included permitting farmers markets in state and local parks, the creation of a state parks passport program, the creation of a state task force to promote outdoor learning and recreation opportunities, and limiting the alienation of municipal parkland. These bills will help to preserve and protect our forests and wildlife, encourage visitors to explore state parks, promote environmental education, and increase fresh and healthy food for our communities across the state. Over the last several weeks, the senator chaired 2 virtual meetings of the Senate Standing Committee on Cultural Affairs, Tourism, Parks, and Recreation. The senator and his fellow senators discussed and voted on several legislative bills that will expand access to New York State parks. These bills include the creation and posting of a trail guide for senior citizens, prohibiting littering within state parks, permitting farmers markets in state and local parks, and a task force on outdoor environmental education and recreation, amongst other legislation. As chair of the Senate Committee on Cultural Affairs, Tourism, Parks, and Recreation, the senator is pleased that the final budget includes $120 million for arts program, $250 million for capital state parks, $20 million for zoos, botanical gardens, and aquariums, and $3 million for our Connect Kids to Parks, a youth opportunity program, and $2 million for Parks Friends Group stewardship grants.
Thank you. Let's go next to Kevin John Baptiste from District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Kevin John Baptiste from the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office. Be really brief. I know it's a very long meeting, but I did want to thank the outgoing members of the community board and welcome the new members of the community board. We look forward to working with several of you on several public safety aspects and collaborating on different initiatives. The main thing that I wanted to announce today is the fact that gun violence is continuing to plague our city and country, as we see the incident that happened in Buffalo. What we're doing in response, we have several initiatives that District Attorney Alvin Bragg is coordinating, but part of those efforts is hosting a gun buyback that we're doing on June 25th in Harlem. We try to target the areas that experience the most significant impacts of gun violence, and Harlem, Central Harlem being one of them. However, this event is open to the entire borough, where folks can turn in their firearms and spread their word out to different folks, their neighbors, friends, families, etc., and receive a $500 gift card for that firearm. If it's an assault, if it's a rifle or a shotgun, I think you get $150. And imitation pistols, you get $50. So we want to spread the word on that. That's just one of the initiatives that we're doing to combat gun violence. And there are several others that when we have more time, we'd like to speak more on those initiatives as well. But again, the date is June 25th. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And for more information, please visit our website, manhattanda.org. And also please sign up for our newsletter on that website as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think that's it for the elected official reports. So I will give a chair's report. So there's a few things that I want to cover. First of all, I was very pleased to participate in the ceremony renaming Audre Lorde, that intersection at 68th and Lex, Audre Lorde Way. I want to let everybody know, so the East Side Freedom Square Coalition is still actively raising money to aid Ukraine. And so for folks who want to support Ukraine, they are able to donate there. And I think will put the link in the chat. And the coalition is still active, and we'll have more to announce soon on activities there. I want to make sure everybody knows about the upcoming Community Board 8 art shows and art activities that we have planned. So June 11th is an art show, and there will also be crafts and music there at James Cagney Place, which is 91st between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. I believe that's set for 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So, really encourage everybody from the community to join us. The last, art shows that we've done in the past have been very successful and a lot of fun. So I really encourage everyone to join. And if you would like to display your art there, it is still possible to do that. You have until the 20th to submit art to be included in the show. And there's also going to be tango lessons that we'll be doing on June 24th. And we will have more details to announce about that as well, but hope folks will be able to join for that. In addition, I want to let board members know and members of the public, committees will continue to be allowed to meet on Zoom through June. So it's a little bit up in the air what we're going to be doing when it comes to the full board meeting. And, you know, we may have to go back in person. I think the current state of things is that we're going to go back in person unless the state of emergency is extended or we adopt some sort of hybrid meeting protocol. But the current plan is for committee meetings at least to stay on Zoom through June, and we will have more information about what we're going to be doing for full board meetings. And then the last thing that I want to let folks know is one of our members, Sharon Pope Marshall, is a recipient of an Our Town Thanks You Award, ADI, this year. So those are just announced. So I just want to congratulate Sharon, and also congratulate others who received the award, including Councilmember Menon. But a special shout out to our own member Sharon on that. So that's it for my report, and I will turn it over to Will for the district manager's report.
I'll be very brief and echo everyone else's welcoming to the new board members and sharing thanks to the outgoing board members. You guys were all great resources, and I look forward to working with the new members. Our office is a resource. Never hesitate to reach out. We are always available to help if you need an understanding of navigating the system and want to figure out how to get better involved. As we are getting new members, all board members will receive a new contact list, and our website will be updated in the next few days. So if you're a new member and you haven't sent us your contact information, please do so soon. And then we are currently in the process of interviewing for replacing Mohima, who is our outgoing community associate. So if you know anybody who's still looking for a job in New York City government, the job posting is on our website, but they can also email our office if they would like to apply, but they need to do so quickly because we hope to have a candidate before the board sometime in June. And with that, I'll give my time back over to Russell and we can get moving to the committee reports.
Yes, so committee reports, and we're going to start with the Youth Education and Libraries Committee. So Vanessa can't make it this evening, unfortunately, but I'm going to turn it over to Taina and Rami.
Thank you, Russell. Taina?
Thank you. So I am going to recuse myself from discussion on this issue, but I trust that Rami will do a great job reviewing everything, and I will not be voting on this topic, on the resolution, out of a conflict of interest. So, but I'll turn it over to Rami.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Many of you attended our youth and education meeting on April 28th. We had 180 people attend, which is the most in at least recent committee's history. I don't know how far back it goes, but a very well-attended meeting. As we mentioned in our minutes and resolution, there was a large and overwhelming support for the Knickerbocker Grays. As we did tonight, we did a raise of hands on the Zoom during the committee, and it was a clear majority. So we heard from Adrian Rogotnik and from the Knickerbocker Grays, and we heard from Rebecca Robertson, the founding president and executive director of the Park Avenue Armory, also known as the Conservancy and 7th Regiment. It has a bunch of names, but it's the Park Avenue Armory now. A brief rundown: the Grays are a historic community institution, as we heard during the public session. They've been in the Armory since the Armory was built, so well over 120 years. It's, as you heard in the public session, the building is part of the Grays history, and the building is also a really big part of the Upper East Side. The building is owned by the state, while the land the building sits on is owned by the city. So it's public land, and it's being leased to the Conservancy, which is a 501c3. There was a number of questions raised during the committee meeting regarding the Armory's legal authority to evict the Grays from the building, because that's really the crux of the issue, is that the Armory would like to remove the Grays from the premises. The Grays occupy a small space in the basement and also use the building to do drill and to practice drilling, as they have for 120 years. They've been out of the building since COVID started. So that's one of the reasons why now the Conservancy is starting to move this along. Also, the Conservancy is asking to renovate the basement of the Armory, as they've done to many parts of the rest of the building, to do performances and other stuff, such as trade shows and other things. So what we ask in our resolution is for the state to look into the matter and to provide documentation that permits the Grays to stay there, and to, of course, keep the Grays in the Armory. The vote was 14 yes, 1 not vote for cause at the committee. So questions? Michelle?
Thanks, Rami. Rami, your point that it's now the Park Avenue Armory and no longer the 7th Regiment Armory speaks to a little bit about what my comments are going to be. And they are mainly directed towards the new people and those who may not be as familiar with the Armory, the program, and with the discussion that went on in the committee, and with the generalized input from the community and the feeling. I, along with others, started a group, and it was about 2006, a community group representative of the community in opposition originally of the then 7th Regiment Armory being taken over by the Conservancy. The Conservancy was represented at that time by Rebecca Robertson, still is, who came from Lincoln Center. And with a donation of Mr. and Mrs. Wade of approximately $30 million, the effort was to create, and I'm quoting here, sort of a Lincoln Center on the East Side. And the community had tremendous opposition to this at the time because of the concern that there would be start and end times to performances, 8 o'clock start, 11 o'clock end, that would put tons of people on the street at one time, whereas now the art shows handle people that are coming in over 6 and 8 hour periods, so there's no real concentration of effort. There was a lot of concern about that, and also I read the Armory lease, the Conservancy lease. I read it from cover to cover. The last page expressed the desire of bringing major orchestras, dance, theater companies from all over the world to perform here. The lease actually, and now remember how many years ago this is, called for a box office budget of $450,000 a year, and for a potential occupancy of 4,000 people. And to comply with that, with the fire requirements, you would have to cut 2 openings in the side of that beautiful landmark building. So this originally was the aim of the Conservancy. And at the time, we, many in the community, myself included, were very upset about the attempt to erase the history there, both by the name and even renaming the drill hall as the Wade Thompson Drill Hall. May I also remind you that not only is the building a landmark, but the drill hall floor is a landmark. And when there were comments about how that floor was used, motorcycles are on it, sand, water, etc., I can only hope that they're protecting the original floor when they're exercising it and using it in that way. there was a lawsuit at the time with the veterans. The veterans, in my mind, this is an opinion, but it was certainly supported by many, were very, very poorly treated and, in a sense, really ousted. The historical artifacts in the Armory were sent to a location in storage upstate. I believe it was Saratoga. And the Conservancy proceeded to renovate some of the rooms. Now, that was fine, but the truth is, at the time, most of the renovation and restoration was actually to convert the Armory into an entertainment center, in that there were dressing rooms put in, appropriate lighting, appropriate seating, and all the things that you would need to turn it into a Lincoln Center on the east side or a main performance center. So from the very beginning here, this building and this tradition was not as venerated as I think it should have been. There was not the respect that the veterans got, that they should have received. And now we come all these many years later to today, and now the Knickerbocker Grays are not getting the respect that they deserve, both for what they do for the community and for the historic perspective. When Rebecca Robertson was at the committee and made a presentation, she was very, very proud of the community work that the Conservancy does, and showed pictures of all the school and community groups that they accommodate in that space. So why the venerable community group of Knickerbocker Grays would not be one that would be included is actually beyond me. For everybody else, if there are any other questions about the history, look it up online so that you can understand what your vote means tonight. And at tonight's meeting, although you got the flavor about how much support the Knickerbocker Grays have, you didn't get half of the feeling that you would have gotten had you been at the committee meeting, or had you been able to hear everybody and everybody's point of view, including veterans, and the reverence for the history and the acknowledgement of the people who died serving this country. So please, please, please support this resolution. But I do want to make a comment about the resolution, if I may.
Michelle, I just, sorry, you've been going on for a while, so if you can.
You're right, Russell, and I will sum up by just saying my recollection of the resolution is that it was much stronger. Correct me if I'm wrong, there were many people at that committee, and I want to support the resolution tonight, so I'm not trying to undermine that. But the resolution tonight is calling for all kinds of mediation and suggestion of mediation, and work with this one and work with that one. My recollection of the resolution at the committee meeting was to have the Knickerbocker Grays remain at the Armory. And that's what I came away with. Now, if there are other members of the committee who feel that way or who can support what I'm saying, if my recollection is correct or not, please let it be known tonight. Whether or not you want to change the therefore be it resolved in tonight's meeting, I'll leave that up to you, Russell, and members of the board. But if you do, if others could make a comment in either they support my recollection, or maybe I'm wrong, but I would just like that clarified before we take a vote. And I just want to stress to the new members and anybody else who might be on the fence on this issue, this is crucial that we support this group and that they remain in this space. So I'll leave, what you want to do with this, of course, Russell, is up to you and others. Thank you very much.
Oh, a point of order, was that a friendly amendment, or is that, or an amendment? Can we unmute Michelle again?
Yeah, okay, well, I'm going to leave that. It'll be a friendly amendment for sure if the chair permits it after my speaking. I don't know how that applies in this situation. I know I couldn't make a resolution after having spoken,
No, but it was,
perhaps an amendment perhaps is acceptable. If so, I'm happy to do it.
so, okay, yeah, I think that's a question for you, Rami, but I think Barbara's the one who would offer the resolution. I would say in the absence of a sort of specific request.
And I actually went back to the recording to not transcribe, but to get the wording for this. And this is the words that were said in the recording. And in fact, the text that is in the minutes of the Youth and Education meeting is actually stronger than what was said in the meeting. That was the words that were actually voted on. This is stronger. It's towards the end of the meeting if you want to go back and watch it. But Marco?
If I can just jump in, Rami, real quick. I just want to, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to address, I'm getting text messages and emails, and Will's getting direct messages. So I just wanted to address I checked with the Manhattan Borough President's General Counsel before I got on this call. I am not participating in discussion of this issue, which is why I did not have to state at the moment when I chose, by choice, I am not required to recuse myself from discussion of this issue. I did not have to state what my conflict of interest was. When this comes to a vote and I vote, and I do not vote for cause, I will state my conflict of interest. But just to clear the record, I do not represent the Knickerbocker Grays. I do not represent the Armory. I have a conflict of interest that wouldn't have come up during the committee meeting, but given the way the resolution was written and whose desk it will end up on, I do have a conflict of interest. I, by choice, the General Counsel of the Manhattan Borough President's Office, said to me, I could participate in discussion. I would rather not, and that is why I am not participating in any of this discussion, and I will explicitly state my conflict of interest when the vote comes up. I hope that clarifies everything.
Thank you. Marco?
Thank you, Rami. A brief comment. Taina, you got to apply the 3Ds. Disclose, debate.
We just
We're
covered
not
this.
discussing
We
that.
just
We're not
covered this.
discussing
We
that.
just covered
We're
this.
only taking
Thank you.
questions and comments about the resolution that's on the floor.
Being said that, now I'm going to do my statement. I rise in support of this issue. I visited the Park Avenue Armory 7th Regiment, which was built in 1879, and since 1881 to the present, the Knickerbocker's Grade has been calling it their home. Indeed, according with the New York State Military Museum and Veterans, the status of this building is, quote, taken over by the 7th Regiment Armory Conservancy in 2006, currently home to Park Avenue Armory, not-for-profit, veterans of the 7th Regiment, Veterans Corps of Artillery, and the Knickerbocker's Grade. At the entrance of the building, there are two memorable plaques in honor of the Knickerbocker's Grade. One of them is, quote, Honor World War, the Knickerbocker's Grade, dated 1917 and 1918. And another dated in 1941 and 1946 in memory of those veterans of the Knickerbocker's Grade who lost their lives in the World War II, end of quote. In short, some of the heroic members were first Knickerbocker's Grade members who served heroically our country, and some of them sadly lost their lives. Therefore, we cannot afford to evict the little Knickerbocker's Grade from this facility because they are part of the history of this facility. It would be a dishonor to the memory of those Knickerbocker's Grade that lost their lives. I commend the philanthropic efforts of the Regiment Armory Conservancy / Park Avenue Armory of the three programs, arts, education, and maintain and repair this building. I will also call their attention to its name, Conservancy. This means to preserve the building for the little patriots Knickerbocker's Grade too. Bear in mind, not only does the architecture tell part of the history, but also the constant marching and honor the flag of the United States inside of the building by the little Knickerbocker's Grade are the soul of the history of this military fort building. And to evict them from this facility, that is so wrong. Mrs. Robertson director of the Park Avenue Armory, said that this building is too busy with a lot of activities. Well, I visited during its business hour on Monday between 1 to 12 Zoom. The corridor of the picture behind me is approximately 16 feet wide and 120 feet deep. As you can see, it is empty, even though in the main saloon, there are an army of workers preparing for the new exhibition. Therefore, this facility is big enough to accommodate the civic practitioners by the Knickerbockers without affecting Mrs. Robbins' programmatic needs. The cellar corridor of approximately 20 feet by 100 feet deep was also empty. And this is the place where the Little Patriots practice honoring the USA flag and has its office. I hear also that these Little Patriots may use the service entrance. That is outrageous. To treat these Little Patriots as if were second-class citizens. That is unacceptable. These Little Patriots must have access to the front of this facility. Consequently, this is a military building, and it has to keep as such for these Little Patriots in this facility. And they need to have their own lease with the state to perpetuate them on these glorious buildings and do not not have a sublease. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Felita?
Before I'm just going to briefly observe, it seems to me, both from the public session and from the comments that we've heard so far, there does seem to be a consensus here. So I would say, unless folks are going to take the other side, I think the commentary, we see how it's going, and I don't know that we need to continue to discuss this overly. So that's my admonition to folks who are have their hands raised here.
Alita.
Hi,
Thank you,
thanks. I'd like to propose a friendly amendment, which is that unless the Knickerbocker Greys are allowed back into the Armory, that the Conservancy be denied public funding, whether through the state or through the city.
Excuse me, I'm just reviewing the text. I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Does that need to be seconded?
I don't know the rules. Russell does probably.
I think it does.
No, it's
sorry,
Rebecca.
Friendly amendment, I think, probably does need to be seconded.
Or
a friendly amendment accepted by the co-chair of the committee is adopted.
Okay. Lynn?
So just briefly, I would like to concur and speak on the friendly amendment. I believe we're at a critical time that we are sanctioned to help be keepers of history. I'm kind of heartbroken at what's happened to the Greys over time, because I really believe that they have not been respected in that space. And I think that the amendment that Alita asked to add helps us support them in a way that I believe that we should. I sit on a couple of historical boards. We are really at a critical time period where it is really important now for us to have a voice if we want to encourage history having a place in this city. And it's now, and we need to vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
A point of order here. The current text before the friendly amendment says it doesn't say it as such a strong word as Alita put it, but in the last line of the resolution, I'm paraphrasing, as well as engaging in a conversation about a longer-term solution, including the possibility of allowing the Greys to enter a long-term lease directly with the state. That to me, if the Greys have a lease with the state, they'll be able to operate within the Armory with or without COVID. is that correct? Yes, I see head nods. So I personally, I don't like, I'll keep the friendly amendment, but I don't think it's useful in this case here, but.
I didn't think it related to COVID.
I think it makes the language stronger, Remy, in terms of protecting the historical parts that are at the Armory now. And I know that the Grays aren't the only historical piece that's there, but I definitely think we need to defend them tooth and nail and the historical aspects of that site.
Yeah, so, but the issue that we are tasked with is handling the issue that we were approached with as a committee to deal with was the issue that the Grays were getting evicted, not the fact that the Grays were not operating within the drill hall or not operating in the building because of COVID. But I feel like we could kill two birds with one stone here, and with the wording that is currently there. I'll keep the amendment though. Sharon?
Sorry, point of information. What's the amendment?
The amendment would be to add a whereas, or add a line into the be it resolved that calls on the state to withhold public funding until the Grays are let back in. Sharon?
Thank you. These past 2.5 years have been upending for our city and also for our nation as a whole. And I think continuity is absolutely critical, especially when it comes to the Grays and their deep roots at the Armory. They should not be evicted at all. It's important that we maintain and retain this institution at the Armory. And I'm hoping that the next person after me might call a question so that way we could show the community that we support the Grays as well.
Thank
you.
Rebecca?
Before I second Sharon's motion, I think the friendly amendment should be it further resolved.
I'll accept that.
All right, then I say second.
So was that a second, or is that, so we called the question? Yes, okay. Well, wait. No. Rebecca, you got to call the question. You can't speak on it.
Sharon called the question.
Sharon spoke on it.
Sharon spoke on it. So just go to Barbara. Barbara, no.
Hit unmute again. There you go.
Now, okay, I'm calling the question.
Thank you. A second, Rebecca. Okay, yielding to secretaries.
There's a point of information question from Mark, from Kaz. Kaz, ask your point of information question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Alita's amendment was for the state and the city to withhold the funding, not just the state.
Does the Armory get city funding as well?
Yes.
Yes, then I'll accept it. So the
Well, that was
Alita's.
Alita's.
Yes, my apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kaz. So the resolution that is being voted on is going to be, I'm not taking the vote, Sandrea is, but I'm just recapping here. It's the text that's in front of you with a be it further resolved that until this issue is resolved and the Grays are let back into the Armory to drill and to to be in the Armory, that city and state funding are withheld from the Conservancy. Sandra?
All right. Greetings all. Due to technical issues, I am off camera all night. My apologies. Welcome to all our newly appointed board members, those that were not reappointed. Your intellect, compassion, and input will be truly missed. Please raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. Tina?
Thank you, Sandria. So I am not voting for cause, and the stated reason is I have a current business-related conflict of interest because I have business with state entities on the government side on whose desk this resolution will land on.
Thank you. Carolina?
I'm abstaining.
Any more? I don't see anybody. Okay. Anju? Please unmute. Okay.
Yes, I'm also abstaining.
Okay. Judith?
Abstain.
Okay. Any more? Okay. This resolution passes with 41 votes, 1 not voting for cause, and 3 abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next let's move to the Transportation Committee. Greg and Chuck.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just waiting for Chuck. I didn't know if he was.
Yeah, I'm here.
Discussion. Hi, Chuck.
I'm here. So I just want to say that welcome all new board members and thank the board members who went off this time for their great service to the board. And I especially want to thank Barry Schneider, who was a co-chair along with me of this Transportation Committee for a number of years and does great service to our community. This is a follow-up to something that's been ongoing for some time, and that's the proposed permanent open restaurant program. And as we know, we're working under the temporary restaurant program, which has been in effect since the pandemic started a couple of years ago. And they're moving forward slowly to put a permanent program into place. And the Department of Transportation is going to really have the jurisdiction over both in the permanent program of both the sidewalk cafe parts of it and the in-street parts of it. And there'll be other agencies that contribute because there are things, sanitation, fire department, consumer affairs, and others. But and transportation is going to be setting up a whole complete enforcement unit because that's been one of the issues that has people complained about in the temporary program. We passed a resolution at not that long ago at our board meeting that we wanted to have something to say about the development of this program, and the Department of Transportation said we will. But we decided that we would move forward and jointly with other committees at our last transportation meeting and we included street life, environment, and sanitation and small business. And we looked at zoning, thank you. And thanks to the great work of Craig, who put together a comprehensive list of all the things that have been thrown out there as proposals in the environmental statements, the impact statements that's come out, and also on the DOT website. We went through a number of issues, and the minutes really lay it out very clearly, all the issues. And we had 7 resolutions that passed, and a number of them were unanimous and others not, but there were just some issues. And so we should probably go over these, and we had very good cooperation, and it went very smoothly because in the committee, because we had a lot to go through, and hopefully that'll be the same here. And Greg and I'll just sort of share some of these. And why don't I start with resolution 1, which is the these are general recommended policies that apply to everything in the program. They break down to things, the general ones, the ones that apply to the sidewalk cafes, and the ones that apply to things in the street. And then there's some additional other generalized things that go beyond the ones we're talking about here, and we'll get to that. And so basically, as you can see in this resolution, and this was a resolution that passed 16 yes plus 1 public member and 1 no. So we had 17 people who were actually there at the committee, and what it goes through here is that we're urging the city to adopt the following rules for permanent outdoor dining. This would apply all across the board, and it's limitations to the times of day in which open restaurants can operate, subject to community board input for each individual establishment. Adherence to all state, local, and federal requirements related to accessibility for people with disabilities, including path of travel, minimum table heights, and clearance requirements. At least 8 feet of sidewalk clearance be provided to ensure pedestrian flow is not impeded. Prohibiting the use of propane heaters, you'll see that again. Prohibiting fully enclosed structures, and that's one of the things that it's going to be different from the temporary program. And as a baseline, noise mitigation requirements for open restaurants should be no less restricted than those applied to sidewalk cafes prior to the pandemic. Implementing additional appropriate noise mitigation measures with community board input on such measures and requirements for each establishment. Promulgation of rules in accordance with the City Administrative Procedure Act that incorporate and enhance the existing Department of Consumer Affairs sidewalk cafe controls, and referral of community noise disputes to alternate dispute resolution through the mediating establishment and neighborhoods disputes program, which is a new program that they want to start, because now complaints go to 311 and nothing ever happens to them. This they'll have a hearing and something will happen here, and highlighting for the restaurant community the license requirements, which will be new, that control noise, including the potential for the termination of a license for non-compliance through education and outreach, such as an explicit code of conduct for potential licensees, and DOT to provide a dedicated full enforcement unit to enforce roadway structures, ADA compliance, clear path compliance, and illegal use of amplified noise devices, with NYPD also providing enforcement of noise regulations. And the last one, enforcement to be conducted in a uniform and consistent manner that allow units to investigate specific complaints, but also broader geographic areas or corridors. That's the cause Spagnoletti complaint a lot. And then, and be it further resolved that Community Board 8 requests that DOT be required to be flexible, there should be a B in there, and take the needs of restaurants into account in the siting of new and existing bike racks and other transportation infrastructure. So that's the first resolution, and I think we ought to, that was not unanimous. As I said, there was 1 no, and I don't know whether, why don't I, since it was the 1 no, why don't I recognize, we recognize Cause, so he can talk about his issues. Go ahead, Cause.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused.
Can we unmute Cause?
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah,
Can you
you're
hear
okay.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused. The meeting that night, we took the first 4 items. That was my no, not on the whole lot. The way you're reading the minutes is that we took a position on every single one. We have about 6 or 7 resolutions to approve. Mine was on the first 4 items, not the whole lot. So that's where I'm confused now.
So we put them all together. We put them all together, cause we put all of these together, and that's what we voted on.
Russell had proposed the resolution, and I went through the video and made sure to document and went over numerous times to ensure that I was grouping things together based on the actual discussion. And this first resolution included a number of bullets and sub-bullets, which are all considered bullets here, regarding some of the noise elements there. But essentially, it was the first 4 bullets and then a little more detail regarding the some of the noise matters, and we deal with noise more in one of the later resolutions. And then the last item was something that we had also mentioned in the context of that first discussion and not later on in it. So I guess that's all I have to say there. It follows the manner in which the meeting and debate went.
But my complaint was we started taking item by item. Chuck suggested we take the first 4 items, we discussed that, we did at length, and then we voted.
Right, and these are
right. That was the first resolution. Then we went on to the next group of, and then eventually we did. So we took 7 or 8. My initial complaint was going to be that we should have discussed, it should have been one document, one resolution for the whole lot, rather than break it down into 6, what we take, 6, 7, 8 resolutions.
7.
Right.
Well, cost, we had so many things. We had so many things, and there were things that were divisible because things that applied, like these are provisions that apply to the rules for the sidewalk cafes and also the ones that are in the street. And so that are general. And then we have resolutions that apply specifically to the sidewalk cafes and specifically to the things in the street. Then we have some additional regulations that deal with noise, and that's why they were you couldn't do the whole thing as one. It just didn't work that way, and I think it worked well in the committee. So I guess I don't know what to say on this because this is what we talked about, and we started out. You're right. That taking the first 4, but then we combined others that looked like.
That's the one that I voted no on. On the rest, on all the other resolutions, I voted yes.
There are 6 or 7 total resolutions. The first resolution was incorporated multiple bullets and it's reflected.
But we only voted on the first 4 items. Well, right. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm wrong. Okay, I'm wrong again, but that's all right. Look, we discussed the first 4, then we took a vote.
No, we actually discussed the first 4, and as within the context of that discussion, additional pieces got added to it, and Russell then made a resolution.
That's not what we voted. Okay.
Yeah, a little additional information.
Okay, I've got nothing else to say then.
Okay, thank you, Cause. Now, Will, help me out here. I'm seeing certain people and I'm not seeing others. Anthony Cohen I see first. Is that correct?
Correct. It's Anthony, then Rebecca, then Barbara Rutter.
And Barbara Rutter, and then, okay. And I also, okay, so Anthony, can we unmute Anthony? Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Chuck. I have just 2 comments. I think this is a very inclusive set of resolutions. It represents a massive effort on your part, and I congratulate the committee and its co-chairs for actually getting all of this kind of put together and carefully thought out. So that was the first comment. Second comment, also pretty brief. I'm a little sad that we no longer have the option to say no to roadway dining altogether. But I think that reinforcing the seasonal nature of it, that it goes away when it snows or when it's expected to snow, and not allowing heaters, I think will certainly make it more tolerable. And finally, the only thing in all of this that I object to is the notion of expanding beyond the limits of the actual property. And it's a sort of, it's a little bit like what in architecture we call scope creep, where things just get a little bit bigger and then a little bit bigger. And that's actually the only resolution that I expect to vote against. Thank you. You guys did a great job.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate that. But that was a big, long discussion in the committee. Rebecca Dangor is
right. And if I could just respond also, and thank you very much for those comments, Anthony. In deference to anyone who does not agree with the concept of roadway dining, we put in the language in the roadway dining resolution that says if roadway dining is ultimately enacted. So I just want to make clear that we were trying to recognize that not everyone was on the same page with that.
Yeah. Yes. Barbara Rutter. Rebecca. Sorry. Can we unmute Rebecca? Oh, she is unmuted. Go ahead.
So I guess I'm going to echo what Anthony said. I think the work of this committee has been exceptional on this issue. The way it's been broken down into 7 resolutions enables those who feel differently about specific points to vote that way. And since I guess I began speaking, so I'm not going to make a motion, but I think when we get to it, we can potentially take the unanimous resolutions together, provided that no board member who was not at the committee wishes to vote differently.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Barbara Rutter.
Yes, I was going to say what Anthony said in terms of just congratulating. What a pleasure to see that we're getting a direction and working with it. I have one comment, the one about an 8-foot leeway. What happens if in the middle of the structure there is a tree guard or something like that? How do you count the 8 feet? I could give a real example of the restaurant next to me. It's a structure that's there, and part of it's 8 feet, and then a large portion is a tree guard that's probably only 3 feet of leeway. So how do you count it, or can we have a change to the wording to say that the whole thing must be 8 feet or something like that?
Chuck, I don't know if you have any knowledge from what I'm not entirely clear, because it's not as if they provided graphics to depict exactly how that 8 feet is going to be maintained. And I do think you have a valid concern. I've seen it time and again where you can have a tree guard that reduces the clearance and creates pedestrian bottlenecks, especially if you have a stroller or wheelchair or something of that nature.
Or 2 people working together, a person walking one way or the other, north and south, or that type of thing.
So
I think
I have to go and sort of squinch on the side if somebody's coming the other way. And the structure is such that I actually sometimes have to walk backwards to let the other person go by, or vice versa.
I think on that, Barbara, the sense I have from DOT, I mean, it hasn't been finally developed, but you're going to have to avoid those kinds of things to give adequate clearance. And so you may not be able to have a table right there that's, that close to the tree guard or something like that. And that would be blocking egress. And I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to look at all of these applications, and there are going to be a lot of, issues where they won't be able to have as many, as many seats maybe as they might have because of those kinds of obstructions. So I think that's really going to be, how they're going to handle it in the end.
Okay, you don't want to add
I think-
wording to.
No, I think we want to say we want the 8 feet. We want to say, and what's going to happen here, just so everybody realizes, the DOT said to us that they will come back once they get, we're making suggestions right in the very beginning here. Once they have some things more focused, they're going to come back to us for more comments. And so we'll be able to react to more specifics, but we wanted to get in early, and that was the purpose of doing what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So I think we're,
Yeah.
at this point, I'm just leaving it in general with the 8 feet. Yeah.
Okay.
And to that end, we've included a lot of reminders within
Right.
resolutions regarding ADA compliance, and I think
Correct.
our intent is clear that it's not, that pinch points are not acceptable.
Great. Perfect wording for it. Thanks.
Rami, I think, is next, if I have it right.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to call the question on all of the unanimous resolutions.
Well, let's wait till we do these 2 resolutions, and we'll come to the, we have 2 that aren't unanimous, and I think it's 2 or 3. And why don't you wait on that, Rami, because I think we need to just sort of lay out the discussion a little bit on that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, Jane Partial, I believe, is next. Yes, Jane.
Thank you, Chuck. Has this board taken a position on whether they're for these sheds in the streets or not? I am totally opposed. I want to.
Can I just say no sheds are going to be allowed in the streets. They're not going to be sheds.
Okay, so all these temporary structures I see around the corner from me on Lexington,
Correct.
they're all going to go.
That is one of the cornerstones of this proposal, that permanent enclosed structures will be prohibited. And then we have further language in here to not even permit platforms to provide ADA access. So essentially requiring that roadway dining be on the street itself and be accessible via ramps, because the fear was that platforms would be too permanent, even for a program that is not intended to have any permanent.
Okay, thank you, because I think our beautiful city has been ruined by all these sheds. Thank you.
Yeah, the sheds are gone. They'll be gone. Not gone yet. They will be.
Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, I guess Michelle is next, right? That's what I'm seeing. Can we unmute Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I wanted to make that clarification that that there will be no structures, no sheds. What is being proposed in place of that on the in the roadbed, and there is language later on where we say that resolution about roadbed is not in support of it. It's only whether or not if it is instituted. But what they are recommending or proposing are 3-sided, 3-foot barriers. And in fact, in one of the places, they're just proposing no barriers, but just the street furniture on the street. And we specifically asked for no platforms, not only for the ADA compliance, but also for the gathering of garbage and vermin where they seem to accumulate over those slatted, platforms when food drips down, and that's where they, so I just wanted to clarify that. And I just want to clarify the 2 resolutions that were not unanimous. One of them had to do with a proposal or a resolution that expansion to the next door.
Michelle, that's our next resolution. We're gonna come and talk
I
about.
just want, because I know there's going to be a lot of confusion over that, and the one about emergency
I hope not.
vehicles. No, well, so just so that that's great, Chuck, that's fine, as long as we really have a separate discussion of that.
Yes.
And the one about emergency vehicles.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Otherwise, fine. I mean, this resolution, it says what it says, and the others will clarify themselves. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Billy Freeland.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
First, just you guys did an exemplary job on this. So really want to commend you, and I'm sorry I couldn't make the meeting. My only question, I want to focus on this aspect of how we look at the bike racks in terms of citing restaurant, outdoor dining. I'm certainly open to it. I don't have any real issue with it, but sometimes it seems to me that we don't put bike racks in a logical place. For example, adjacent to a protected bike lane versus if you're going down the bike lane and then you've got to cross the street through traffic or whatever. Had you given any thought to language in here that tries to make sure DOT goes about the siting in a more balanced or sensible way? Or I just want to better understand what you're trying to get at here with the language, and if there's any language you'd be open to adding to to make clear the balance of interest that we probably want to strike.
I guess I'll respond by saying that this was an extremely comprehensive and complex process, just given all the proposed specific policies. And this, what you're speaking to in regards to DOT being, considering these issues for going forward, was an add-on. I forget who had proposed that, and that was more in response to some of the discussions that we've had in the past at our committee about trying to accommodate the needs of restaurants when we have non-permanent DOT infrastructure such as city bike stations that are in essence portable, well, not portable, but movable. So I think it would be really getting, I think Anthony was referring to scope creep before. I do fear that if we were to try to incorporate that, what you're suggesting into this, it would muddy the waters and perhaps maybe not have the same level of support if we were to. I think it's a very important matter you speak about and something we should be talking about as a transportation committee, and just in a more general sense in terms of how we are viewing the functionality of our street network and the use of our street, and prioritizing whatever the committee may decide to prioritize. But I think it doesn't necessarily belong as part of this.
Billy, I should, the second resolved in this first resolution says that requests that they be flexible and take the needs of restaurants into account in the siting of new and existing bike racks and other transportation infrastructure. So we want to give them, we're talking in general terms right now. We want to say, look, be careful on these bike racks in the siting and how that interferes with restaurants and stuff like that. That's the concept that we want to, give them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'm satisfied with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon, Pope Marshall. Can we unmute Sharon?
You guys did a great job, just a Herculean job, and including our cheat sheet, which was several pages long. Is it too early, Chuck, to call the question now?
I'd like to have John Phillips talk next, because
I got it.
If we could, and then maybe Sharon, maybe maybe Rebecca can come after John and do it.
Okay.
Okay, but thank you, Sharon. First, I want to say, I'd like to recognize John, and I want to say before John makes a comment that John was at our committee and he was especially helpful in dealing with all of these resolutions, because John is a restaurant owner. He knows what it is on the ground to deal with all these issues, and he took an extremely expansive view and assumed that the restaurants have responsibilities here to do it, and we can't thank John enough for his help. So John, take it away.
Thank you, Chuck. I really do appreciate that. And my comments, I basically want to start from a few questions ago with regard to the 8-foot rule and the tree pits. I think the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is the city planning department in New York City is a very, very robust department. They have many, many guidelines with regard to outdoor cafes and pedestrian traffic in general. As an example, if someone is looking to do, let's say, a text amendment, which this eventually will become, they have to do environmental studies. They have to do foot traffic studies. They have to measure how many people walk through whichever corridor we're talking about in very, very specific terms. The tree pit is strictly defined as something that would prevent a person from walking by, and an outdoor cafe, whether it be in the street or on the sidewalk, is going to have to be counted from that impingement to where that table, chair, or customer is sitting. And that 8-foot rule is something the city holds to very, very strictly. Now, with regard to the new preference for seating in the street, in the roadways, we know that it's going to have to be removable. We know that it's going to have to be seasonal. We know it's also going to have to address the vermin issue. But if the laws that exist currently are an indicator of how they're going to handle that, it's going to be very hard for restaurants to really engage in this program. And I think that's not a bad thing. I've said this a million times. I don't think because you're a restaurant, you should have carte blanche with putting as many tables as you want in the street. You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good community member. But I have all the faith in the world that, city planning and our elected officials are going to make this work the right way. I had to go to city planning myself. They were lovely people. I was expecting them to be really quite difficult to work with. But there was about 12 of them that I met with, and they knew exactly what they were talking about. And they had protocol for every leg of that process. So all that being said, I know people are very freaked out by this. Again, I think the noise complaint is something that can be a real problem in the future. If we don't get ahead of it now, I think the sanitation aspect of this could be a problem if we don't get ahead of it. But if we work with departments like city planning and anybody else who's involved in this, I have no doubt that we'll end up in a good spot.
Thank you, John. And again, thanks for everything, all your help. Rebecca Dangor.
Yeah, sorry. I just brief comment in response to what Jane raised earlier. And Craig, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, but the text amendment we voted on quite a few months ago in terms of Lexington Avenue, I think Jane is around where I am, and it is very difficult to walk in the sidewalk there. And that zoning text amendment, all of the outdoor spaces wouldn't be able to stay after that because of the lack of walking space on the sidewalk. So I don't think that's as much of an issue as we talk about these resolutions tonight.
Thank you.
I thought the zoning text amendment didn't deal with any of the clearance issues and was merely or solely dealing with the geography and the limitations, any language that regarded the provisions of whether sidewalk cafes are permissible and the locations of which they are or aren't.
I defer to you on that, but I remember explicitly asking the question about Lexington Avenue and the speaker saying affirmatively that that would not be an issue and would not be allowed under the zoning text amendment.
I don't recall. I don't know if Chuck remembers or not, or
no. I
don't think
it got to the. I don't think that got to.
I don't think it got into that
level of detail. I don't think so. No.
Yeah, and I saw Michelle shaking her head. I think she agreed.
They're making it clear. They're making it clear that the permanent program will not have any kind of structures in the streets, and they won't have structures, many structures at all. I think in most cases. But Russell, did you want to?
Yeah, call the question.
Okay, is there a second? See a second there? Okay.
Judy, Michelle. Yeah.
Okay, so can the secretaries call the roll? Whoever turn it is. Rami, go ahead.
Thank you. If you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand. Seeing none, the resolution is unanimous, but I'll get an official tally in a moment. There's a bunch of absences.
Okay.
Just as we're moving through the resolutions, I would just suggest that we not, and it's not as much of an issue for number 2, but that we not read all of the provisions of it and all the bullets and everything. I think we can just trust that folks have it. And
well, hopefully. Well, I just wanted the ones that weren't unanimous. I think I wanted to do that. Okay, the second resolution goes to something that people were talking about, and that is the use of adjacent properties. And we had a long discussion about that, and it wasn't unanimous, in the committee. As you can see, there's one vote against it. And this would be that to allow participants to use their frontage, and this is not what is in the city sort of points that they talked about. They said it would only be on the frontage of the restaurant. You couldn't go beyond the frontage, but the committee voted 16, basically 16, and one public member and one opposed, 16-1, to say that allow participants to use their frontage and the frontage of one adjacent business with the permission of the adjacent business for both sidewalk cafe program and roadway dining program, if enacted, is what we said. So that's still, so that was the one issue that was contentious. And Michelle, do you want to make a quick comment? I think we've discussed that a little bit already. Go ahead, and Anthony.
Yeah, thank
also,
you. Yeah, this program is based on a change in the zoning text amendment. The zoning text amendment specifies areas, blocks, locations where restaurants, outdoor restaurants can exist. And there are restrictions and limitations on that. With lifting the zoning text amendment, either replacing it or getting rid of it altogether, you are now saying that if it meets the other guidelines set forth by this new program, which we reflect quite a few in this resolution, our first resolution, then an outdoor cafe can exist anywhere in the city. So just imagine all of the places that where it's not permissible now, it will be permissible. So you're increasing the amount of available locations to outdoor dining. I don't know, however many fold, 10-fold, 20-fold, I don't know. I didn't do that analysis, but very, very, very significantly. So that's a tremendous expansion of outdoor dining. To then say that in addition to that tremendous expansion, you can now double that, as big as that is, because you're now allowing each of those new permissible cafes to also extend into the adjacent location. To me, that is an overwhelming overrun of this program. And I can foresee that it will lead to all kinds of underhanded black market and things of concern. For example, let's say you have a restaurant and he goes to his next door, his neighbor, it's a handbag store, they close at 6 o'clock. They say, sure, you can use my street, but what's my compensation? What are you going to give me for that? Am I now going to be responsible legally for your customers on my street? Am I going to be responsible for your garbage and your trash? There will be such abuse of this. Not the biggest abuse is that you're not only expanding the program to a crazy amount legally, but now you're adding an additional expansion. And this is so over the top that not even the restaurant industry and the city of New York in its proposal for this program recommended that as a permissible thing to do. So if you can just put your foresight hats on and see what the ramifications of this could be going down the road, and also realize that it's an expansion of the most expansion program. I mean, it's really over the top. I heartily suggest that you turn this down. This is unnecessary to the success of this program, and without even testing how this program is going to function with the new increase of service, of cafes. You're now doing it 10 more. You know, you don't have the enforcement for it. You haven't tested the program. I mean, it's completely unnecessary and actually, to my mind, completely unreasonable. So that's my reason for voting no. And actually, I hope the whole board does. I can see no good coming from this.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Anthony Cohen? Can we unmute Anthony?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to, I agree totally with what Michelle just said, but I'd like to sort of offer a hypothetical. One of the reasons why I think that, and I think it said so somewhere, that there was a kind of equity issue involved in trying to give smaller storefronts, if we want to call them that, restaurant storefronts, a larger space outside.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I'm just going to suggest a hypothetical, which is not very hypothetical on the Upper East Side. What if I have a small restaurant and I'm next to a 100-foot expanse of a Duane Reade or a bank, and now the 20 feet that I'm actually, in theory, allowed has now become 120 feet. And what if the other 20-foot guy in the next block doesn't have that big space available to him? This is what I mean by scope creep. We're not actually, we can't write a rule specific enough to cover every possible circumstance. And what ends up happening is that we don't necessarily help those we want to help. We just end up rewarding people because of where their little restaurant just happens to be, which is why I'm voting no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Barbara Rudder is next, I believe.
I'm going to take an opposite point of view. I understand the rules and some of the things to say. I think to some degree it's not practical. One of the pluses that happened is that the streets became lighter. So for people that are out and walking, the city is dark. The street lights are dark, and when we have empty stores or stores that close early and they don't keep the lights on, it's dark. And what happened with these restaurants that did expand to a neighbor allowing them to do so is it was light and safer and alive and so on. The idea that they're going to go all the way to the tip of Duane Reade, I think that's an excessive amount of worry. There's not going to be enough wait staff to start running, to the other end of the block. In terms of keeping clean, this has been neighbor from neighbor, and it seems to have been a very friendly way of working. I did talk to some restaurants about it, where they were able to take over a next store that was empty, and it seemed to have worked out in a very friendly sort of way, and I liked it. I like when things are lighter. I don't like walking on a street that's dark or has patches that are dark or empty because there's an empty store. I think it looks awful, and I think this gave life to it. So I'm going to vote for this.
Thank you. Kaufman is next. Can we unmute Kaufman?
Yeah, I think I'd like to make a friendly amendment to this, that we only allow next door equal to or less than the frontage of the restaurant, and only on the sidewalk, not permanently on the street. If we allow it on the street, it could be there permanently, the 100-foot that Anthony was talking about.
I think that's tricky. I don't know. I'm reluctant, Craig, I don't know how you feel about it. I'm reluctant to accept that because we sort of crafted something after a long discussion, and I think this is a limitation. I'm not sure how this will work. I think we should just leave it. If people, the board should express itself on whether or not we like this concept. I think it's hard for us to micromanage at this stage, frankly.
But these are only suggestions.
No, right, they are, but I think I'd like to, that's something I think takes a lot more discussion, frankly, than we have time for now. unfortunately.
I would agree. I think it changes the entire nature of this resolution and.
Yeah.
If,
So
we'd almost have
I
to have
wouldn't
a-
accept, I wouldn't accept that as a friendly amendment at this point, yeah. Can we go to Russell?
Call the question.
Is there a second?
Shane
Yes,
Marshall.
there is a second, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, can the secretary please call the roll? And that's on resolution number 2.
Rebecca, is this you?
If you'd like to vote, yeah, if you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Cause.
No.
Michelle,
No.
Sherry,
No.
Valerie,
I'm going to abstain.
Anthony,
No.
Marco,
No.
Abraham,
No.
Jane,
No.
we called on Sherry already, right?
Yes, I was a no.
Ed,
Abstain.
Gail,
No.
Mrs. Brown,
No.
I'll have the final vote for you shortly, but the resolution did carry.
Okay, the next 3 through 7 were all unanimous. And I don't know whether if the board, if there's objection to taking them all together, are there any objections to that? I see Judy, Judy Schneider, can we recognize Judy? You have an objection, Judy?
No, I wanted to call the question.
Well, before you do that, let's see if there's any objections. Do we see any, Will, do you see any objections to that?
None so far.
Okay, none so far. So Judy, then I'll call on Judy.
Call the question.
Is there a second?
Billy.
Billy, seconds. Okay. So why don't
So
we call secretary?
Yeah, sorry, so for new members, just to be clear on what we're saying is there are multiple unanimous resolutions that are part of the report, and those we're going to just take all together instead of going through each one. Sorry, Adam. So right now the vote that we're going to do is to vote yes or no on all
Resolution
all
3 through 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Right.
Yeah.
So can the secretary please call the roll?
Yes, please raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please. Valerie.
I'm just going to abstain. Thank you.
Give it a few more seconds. This resolution passed. Okay, wait, Abraham? Abraham?
I'm also going to abstain.
Okay. Okay, this resolution passes. 40 yes, 2 abstaining. Thank you.
Can I just say that I want to thank everybody who came to our committee meeting. We had great discussions, and Russell was also particularly helpful with the number of amendments and putting things together. And above and beyond everything, Craig was fantastic, and I want to thank him for his tremendous efforts. And I think it's a good start. This is not the end. We'll be following this. We'll be getting DOT back, and to be continued. So that concludes transportation. And thanks to the board for helping to move a big thing a long way.
And I think we can't not acknowledge Chuck, because without Chuck's leadership and his ability to moderate the discussion and be able to accommodate all the different opinions and moving parts of this, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. So I think he deserves as much, if not more, credit than I do. So, and I don't want any credit. I just am glad we were able to accomplish stuff. So thank you everyone for your participation in this.
Thanks, everybody.
Chuck and Craig, before you go, there are 3 people who have their hands raised.
Yes, Rebecca Dangor.
Yes, sorry, I'm just gonna read the official vote for the previous item, which was 30 yes, 9 no, and 2 abstentions.
Okay, did Cherry had a comment? Cherry Wiener?
Yes, it was a terrific job that transportation did, but initially this was a conversation with numerous other committees. And I'm just curious if you're planning to take input from other committees as you move forward. You remember the original meeting that was called had many committees in it. And I'm just curious, is your intent to just keep transportation, or will you be getting input from other committees?
This was a joint item of multiple committees. So it was heard in transportation, but all the other committees or the various other committees that had been participating in the small business meeting, it was a joint item with those committees. So they've been heard in effect in the course of the discussion here.
And Sherry, as we go on, we'll have more joint, meetings and stuff like that, joint items, I should say.
Oh, I was hoping that was going to be your response. Great, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else, or are we done?
I think that's it. So we'll go to Rebecca to announce the results, and then we'll move to the next committee. And thank you both for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Sorry, did you announce what the result of the other vote was?
I announced the results.
Sorry, my mistake. Okay, so then let's go to the Social Justice Committee, and I'll turn it over to Sandrea. Sarah had a conflict this evening.
Okay, greetings all again. So co-chair Sarah and I hosted a very robust meeting regarding sub-minimum wages being paid to persons living with disabilities. Assembly Bill A3103, Senate Bill S1826 is attempting to tackle these unjust practices. Assembly Member C. Wright is a co-sponsor of Bill A3103, and Kevin Rogers, her legislative director, presented to the committee. Ryan DuBose, who is no stranger to the Social Justice Committee, as a presenter, was present. He is an associate human rights specialist at New York City Commission of Human Rights. He provided his support and insight as well. Zach Borating, hope I said it right, sorry, who has experienced this discrimination firsthand, was present and shared with us, and thanks to CB8 board member Lori Boris for connecting the Social Justice Committee with SAC, which allowed us to take on this issue. Sarah and I hope that our fellow board members will fully support our resolution. We made sure our minutes and resolution was sent out to you all beforehand. This resolution is in support of the Assembly and Senate bill that I've mentioned to eliminate sub-minimum wages for people with disabilities. 9 states have passed laws eliminating this practice. It is our hopes that New York State will join them too. Open the floor for any questions, comments, or... Oh, okay. Romney?
Thank you, and thank you and the whole committee for your work on this. This is a really important issue that affects both CB8 and the whole state and the whole world, actually. I'll be brief, but I'll read off a few statistics here from the CDC and a few other sources. 2 in 5 adults over the age of 65 identify as a person with disabilities. 1 in 4 women have a disability. People with disabilities are substantially more likely to be obese, have diabetes and heart disease, smoke, as and as a topic we are discussing are significantly more likely to be unemployed. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2021, 19.1% of persons with disabilities were employed. That means the rest of the 100%, which is nearly 80% of people, were unemployed. That is an extremely alarming statistic. This is a life and death issue for many people in the disability community, as health insurance is tied to employment. And just a health insurance statistic here is the average annual healthcare cost for a person with disability is over $13,000, which is significantly higher than the average cost for a person without a disability, which is around $3,000, including out-of-pocket costs, which are twice as high for people with disabilities, $1,053 versus $486. Everyone on this meeting knows a person with a disability in their life. And so I urge all board members to think about that person when you're casting your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Ms. Brown, please.
Yes, I'd like to first express that this is a very important issue, and I appreciate you and Co-Chair Chu for your hard work. I support this resolution and recommend that all board members support it as well and call the question.
I would say you're speaking to the resolution, so you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll leave it to the next person to call the question.
All right, thank you. Judith?
I call the question.
Okay.
Second.
Russell seconds. Okay, we can go for the vote. Thank you. I don't know who's up. I think Rebecca, maybe.
It's me. Sorry, I need to get unmuted. If you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Seeing none.
No, Felice.
Felice.
Oh, Felice.
Abstain.
Thank you. Seeing none, the vote total is 40 with one abstention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. And, you know, we never know who will, when life changes, because I am a person with disabilities as well now. So I'm glad that we tackled this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go next to the Landmarks Committee. We'll turn it over to David and Jane.
Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, so since I'm handling the first one, I guess I'll speak first, and I'm sure Jane joins me in welcoming the new members and thanking the old members. And Jane can also add her personal thanks to that. And we have a very big committee, but for those new members who are interested in landmarks and historic New York, please come visit us, but be prepared to work hard. And with that, if we can see the first slide, I'm going to talk about 895 Park Avenue. It's a wonderful building, and its primary materials are brick masonry, limestone, and terracotta. And the brown is the terracotta, and the application is in relation to the replacement of the terracotta. The terracotta happens to be unglazed, and they want to replace it with cast stone, which is basically a form of concrete. So if we could see the next. There are very many beautiful elements in the building that are done in terracotta. They've already replaced some of the terracotta with cast stone, so they know it works well. cast stone is much stronger. It can be connected with steel, which is a better way than connecting the terracotta, which is done with mortar and sometimes brick masonry. So we felt that they did a very excellent technical job with respect to this building, and it is a unanimous approval on the resolution. So if somebody would like to comment or call the question.
You have Judy and Marco.
I call the question.
Okay.
Marco, you seconding it?
Seconded by Rebecca Dangor, for sure.
Okay.
All right. And Marco is also seconding. So I think in the absence of opposition to that, yeah, go ahead, secretaries.
If you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Michelle?
No.
Unanimous acceptable.
Seeing no others, the vote carries by a total of 40 yes, 0 abstentions, and 1 no.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the second resolution, which we heard, the second application was 18 East 74th Street. It was another unanimous resolution. It's a beautiful house between 5th and Madison Avenue within the Upper East Side Historic District. The application was for reconstruction of the elevator bulkhead, reconstruction of the rear elevation, and reconstruction of the penthouse. I think David would agree with me that it was very difficult to look at the visuals to understand the application. So the visuals don't really help, except in the case of this drawing, which shows the 4-foot override above the level of the penthouse. The penthouse is being moved back from the front elevation to make room for the construction of an elevator bulkhead, which will extend 4 feet above the roof of the penthouse. That element, which you see the mock-up of, which for those who don't know, the Landmark Commission does require a mock-up for these rooftop additions so that the neighbors and everyone else can see their impact. It's very minimally visible from the public way. So we were very happy with that. The other element, the reconstruction of the rear elevation, there is extending into the rear yard what is known as a dog leg. It's just an element that contains perhaps the kitchen wing that goes into the rear yard. They're pulling that back to make a larger rear yard, which we commend too. Why are they doing that? Because this applicant is putting in, believe it or not, below grade, a 75-foot lap pool. Because he happens to be a triathlete and needs to swim. It's fascinating. And then, so those were really the 3 elements: the reconstruction of the rear elevation to pull back part of that dog leg to make a bigger rear yard, to pull back the penthouse from the front elevation to make room for the elevator bulkhead. And that bulkhead will extend 4 feet above the roof of the penthouse. It was a unanimous resolution. Questions, or does somebody want to call the question?
So there are some hands. So Mrs. Brown has her hand up.
Okay. Could we go back? Could I see it? Oh, there's the visibility. It's minimally visible.
And Mrs. Brown has called the question.
Oh, okay, great. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Russell. Is there, I don't know which secretary is handling.
Yeah. Anyone opposed to calling the question?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I don't see any hands. So let's go to the secretaries.
This one is me again. If you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand. Seeing none. Resolution passes unanimously, 41 to 0 to 0 to 0. Thank you.
Thank you, Rami. Sorry for my hoarse voice.
That's okay. We didn't notice. So we are going to go now to the Parks and Waterfront Committee, and Felice Farber and Judy Schneider I've appointed as the new co-chair of this committee to take over for Barry Schneider, who has departed the board. So Felice and Judy, take it away.
Well, thank you. And I would just like to welcome Judy to the co-chairing the Parks and Recreation Committee. I look forward to working closely with her. So the Hospital for Special Surgery presented to us their plans for installing an adult fitness area on the Esplanade. As folks may know, this is an issue that has come up many times before with the Friends of the Esplanade, and many other advocates have been calling for the installation of adult fitness equipment at some point along the Esplanade. HSS came back as part of their plans to redo the walkway on the Esplanade from 72nd to 78th Street. They figured out a location in which they can install an adult fitness area. It would be underneath the pedestrian ramp between 77th and 78th Street. Their presentation looked beautiful, well lit. It would provide a safe area for adult fitness equipment. They would match the color palette approved by the Parks Department. And so this resolution would approve the installation of the adult fitness area. They would work in partnership with the Parks Department on selecting the fitness equipment to be installed. It would be accessible for seniors, persons with disability, and people of different heights. The community board, the resolution recommends approval of the installation of the fitness area and urges that the Parks Department, urges that HSS with the Parks Department look at additional lighting to make sure the area is safe and secure, and explores the potential for some additional security cameras. The resolution was approved unanimously. Are there any questions? Mrs. Brown?
Call the question.
Looks like Marco has seconded that, as well as Michelle. Who's taking the vote?
Doesn't look like anybody's opposed to calling the question. Secretaries.
All right, thanks. Please raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please. I don't see any hands. All right, this resolution passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on with the agenda, I am not aware of any old business. Is there any new business? And in the absence of new business, we can have a motion to adjourn. Rami Segal.
So moved, pending no new business.
Got a lot of seconds on that. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for helping get through a lengthy agenda, and have a good evening.